Chapter 2387. Yiqing Luo's best smile turned colder and colder. Her beautiful face seemed to be covered with a layer of unfathomable meaning. Miao Jingwei was swept by her eyes. He felt a chill down his spine. His entire body stiffened on the spot, unable to move. His heart tightened. The gaze he shot at Yiqing Luo revealed a sliver of vigilance and probing. This young lady, who was she? Why did she have such a strong aura? Even he was subdued by the aura she released. Miao Jingwei's status in the Miao Stockade village wasn't considered high, but it wasn't low either. Other than the reason why he had been following Miao Rongrong, there was also his shrewdness. Miao Jingwei wasn't stupid. He naturally understood that this young lady from another continent, after knowing the identity of Little Lord Battle King, still dared to poison him. After knowing Little Region Lord's identity, she still dared to make a move without hesitation. This was absolutely not just a moment's pleasure. If it wasn't for the fact that she had a trump card, this young lady wouldn't dare to act so recklessly. Thinking in this way, Miao Jingwei's heart was more or less afraid of Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards, as a smile bloomed on her lips, like a poppy, giving off a suffocating charm. What young Master Miao said is right, nothing can be said to be absolute. She smiled faintly as she slowly lifted her feet and walked towards Miao Jingwei's direction. Miao Jingwei's legs started to tremble as he wanted to retreat, but his entire body was stiff. Until Yiqing Luo stood firmly in front of Miao Jingwei, 3 steps away, and stopped. That elegant face quietly reflected in Miao Jingwei's pupils. She smiled slightly in a calm and elegant manner. Second, young Master Miao had better teach this little region lord of yours not to bully others. Luckily the person you met today is me. If it was someone else, I'm afraid that in less than an hour, your North Continent's customs would have spread to the other 3 continents. Beads of sweat rolled down Miao Jingwei's forehead one by one. His eyes widened as the veins on his forehead popped. But unfortunately, under Yiqing Luo's gaze, he couldn't control his own body. Just like, apart from his consciousness, everything he had was under Yiqing Luo's coercion, as he had no way to resist. Brother Wei, what are you doing? Xia Lingling glared at Miao Jingwei from behind. That slut was already forcing Big Brother Wei. Why was Big Brother Wei just standing there and staring at that slut? Could it be Brother Wei was also captivated by that slut? This thought made Xia Lingling's anger surge. Her face flushed red as she pulled the long whip in her hand and flung it towards Yiqing Luo. Slut. Smelly vixen. Do you like to seduce men that much? You seduced Brother Quang and now you're seducing Brother Wei. Xia Lingling let out an angry roar. The muscles on his face felt like they were being torn apart. In her heart, she felt increasingly wronged and unwilling. At the same time, the xian qi on the long whip in her hand continued to rise. She wanted to sneak an attack on that bitch when she wasn't paying attention. However, how could Yiqing Luo not notice Xia Lingling's actions? Just as Xia Lingling waved her long whip, Yiqing Luo had already sensed it. Her eyes flickered slightly as her pink lips curled into a teasing cold arc. Just as Xia Lingling's long whip struck her back, a raging whirlwind suddenly burst forth from Yiqing Luo's body. Chapter 2388. Young Princess. Miao Jingwei regained his senses and found that he could finally move his body. He turned around abruptly and pounced towards the direction of the wave. Brother Wei. Xia Lingling didn't expect Yiqing Luo to react so quickly. When he saw the raging waves coming towards him, he felt a chill down his spine. Xia Lingling, who had never experienced such a dangerous battle, was completely stunned. Bam! Xia Lingling felt her body lightened. Her whole body was pulled into a warm embrace. Following that, she fell heavily onto the ground. And there was a tall figure lying on top of her. Young Princess. The man's low and hoarse voice rang beside her ear with suppressed panting. Xia Lingling blinked her eyes in a daze and stared at the person who was looking at her. Brother Wei. Xia Lingling's heart was faintly filled with a strange feeling. Young Princess, are you all right? Miao Jingwei frowned slightly and his eyes were filled with pain. The sweat on his forehead, drop by drop, fell on her face. If it was any other time, Xia Lingling would definitely wipe it off in disgust and reprimand Miao Jingwei for being disgusting. But at this moment she actually felt. The sweat dripped onto her face. It was filled with a reassuring atmosphere. Just as Xia Lingling's heart was beating wildly. Suddenly she saw Miao Jingwei's clothes were gradually dyed red. Xia Lingling was shocked. Brother Wei, you're hurt. It's all right. Miao Jingwei smiled weakly. As long as young Princess is all right. Brother Wei. Xia Lingling's eyes turned red instantly. Looking at Miao Jingwei lying on top of her, to prevent her from being crushed, he moved his body with difficulty. Somewhere in Xia Lingling's heart, it was completely touched. She knew what it felt like to be touched. Previously on Yuan Kuang's body. She also had this kind of touch. A bunch of trash. Can't you see Brother Wei is injured? Why are you still standing there? Are you all dead? Xia Lingling realized her own thoughts and immediately shouted angrily at the guards who were still in a daze. The guards then regained their senses. They immediately went forward and helped Miao Jingwei up. When Xia Lingling got up, she saw a long blood stain on Miao Jingwei's back. Blood soaked through his clothes. It was a streak of blood. It was the mark left behind by her whip. Xia Lingling's heart tightened, and her tears almost fell. Big Brother Wei. Xia Lingling wanted to touch him, but she was so frightened by the ghastly wound that she did not dare. Miao Jingwei smiled and said, "I'm really fine. I'm relieved that the little princess is safe and sound." Xia Lingling's heart ached, and she continued to ask about his well-being. Yiqing Luo and Peach smiled at each other, their eyes filled with ridicule. Only a silly little princess would believe Miao Jingwei's behavior. Furthermore, apparently the young princess had fallen in love with Miao Jingwei. Could it be that she had unknowingly match-made a pair of lovers? Miao Jingwei furrowed his brows and gasped from time to time. It was as if he was enduring great pain. However, it was not that Miao Jingwei could not bear the whip wounds on his back. In the past, when he was cultivating the art of venom, he had suffered injuries that were much more painful than this. He naturally saw the change in Xia Lingling's attitude towards him. In his heart, he was secretly laughing complacently. He rushed up to help Xia Lingling to block Yiqing Luo's counterattack. This was not because he valued Xia Lingling very much. Or perhaps he wanted to protect Xia Lingling. But Chapter 2389. There were so many spectators in the Peach Blossom restaurant. If he were to injure Xia Lingling in front of him, the monarch who had always doted on Xia Lingling would definitely blame him. Previously, Xia Lingling was slapped twice by Yiqing Luo. If he were to injure Xia Lingling now, he would definitely die. But if he were to run over to save Xia Lingling, at most he would only be injured, and it would make Xia Lingling feel grateful. With Xia Lingling's gratitude, the monarch would also think highly of him. Now, not only did he gain Xia Lingling's gratitude, he even gained Xia Lingling's heart. This move of his was absolutely right. Miao Jingwei was feeling extremely complacent, but he pretended to be in pain. The small, soft hand that was holding him suddenly loosened its grip. He saw Xia Lingling picking up the long whip and pointing it at Yiqing Luo. "Slut. I don't believe that you can overturn the heavens in the northern continent. I'm telling you, just based on the fact that you poisoned Brother Kuang, you struck out at me and even injured the Miao Miao's second young master. These crimes are enough for me to teach you a harsh lesson." Xia Lingling was infuriated. The angrier she was, the clearer her mind was. Looking at Miao Jingwei's painful expression, her heart ached. She must make that slut pay the price for injuring Brother Wei. Little princess. Miao Jingwei instantly panicked. He had never expected that Xia Lingling would actually make a move against Yiqing Luo because of him. If Xia Lingling was injured because of him, wouldn't the injuries on his body be in vain? No way. He couldn't let Xia Lingling be rash. Miao Jingwei didn't dare to pretend to be seriously injured as he swiftly stood up from the ground and wanted to stop Xia Lingling. Although his injury wasn't as serious as it looked, but the whip wound on his back was a real wound. This huge movement. It affected the whip wound on his back as it tore open fiercely. He cried out in pain as he half knelt on the ground in cold sweat, unable to straighten his body. And this scene made Xia Lingling's heart ache even more as the hatred and anger towards Yiqing Luo deepened. Xia Lingling looked at Miao Jingwei sincerely. "Big Brother Wei, I know you don't want me to get hurt, but I must take revenge for you." Saying that, Xia Lingling whipped the long whip in her hand and charged towards Yiqing Luo. "Young princess." Miao Jingwei immediately called out to Xia Lingling. However, as soon as he moved, he felt a sharp pain in his back. He couldn't stop it at all. Yiqing Luo alluringly curled her lips as she tilted her head and looked at the fearless Xia Lingling with a face of admiration. "Little region princess really has a fearless spirit, you say? Should I fulfill your fearlessness?" Xia Lingling's long whip was like a slithering viper. It opened its bloody mouth and charged toward Nie Tian. Yiqing Luo was still smiling. His curved eyebrows were long and narrow. Just as Xia Lingling's whip was about to land on that smiling face, the red-clothed girl's figure swayed. He appeared in front of Xia Lingling. That whip hit empty air. The onlookers didn't realize when Yiqing Luo had left her original spot and appeared in front of Xia Lingling again. The speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't see it at all. A figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Xia Lingling shrieked in terror. She immediately retreated a few steps trying to avoid it. But at the next moment, the young lady stretched out her fair hand and grabbed her collar. Chapter 2390. Yiqing Luo smiled. Why, now you know how to be afraid? Xia Lingling was so frightened that she started to tremble. She wanted to escape, but Yiqing Luo grabbed her collar tightly. It wasn't tight at all. But Xia Lingling felt that there was a suffocating feeling in her throat. Didn't you want to seek revenge for second young Master Miao? Yiqing Luo's face leaned closer to her. Looking at Xia Lingling's trembling and screaming face, Yi Zichen felt a chill run down his spine. She laughed softly. You're so afraid of me, how are you going to seek revenge for second young Master Miao? WHWH. Piak. Before Xia Lingling could say anything, a crisp slap landed on her face. Yiqing Luo looked at her smilingly. Looks like little Region Lord doesn't have a good memory. The burning pain made Xia Lingling feel that half of her face had turned numb. Earlier it was already red and swollen from Yiqing Luo's 2 consecutive slaps. This slap. It was an injury on top of injury, swelling on top of swelling. Xia Lingling was in so much pain that she was filled with rage and grievance. Of course Xia Lingling remembered. This slut said that if she scolded her once, she would hit her once. Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped as she gazed at that unresigned, scared and furious face. The smile on her lips grew bigger bit by bit. As for me, I like the way you can't stand me but can't get rid of me. You. Xia Lingling was flustered and exasperated as she roared angrily. You slut vixen. You're a slut. Slut 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 slut. Xia Lingling was totally in a hopeless situation. She didn't believe that Yiqing Luo would really dare to kill her. That was a series of curses. Yiqing Luo's smile became even more radiant. Her brows arched as she stared at Xia Lingling's blinking eyes. Her 5 fingers suddenly tightened. Xia Lingling's face turned pale as her voice stopped abruptly. Her neck was tightly clutched by Yiqing Luo. That slender fingers tightened one by one. It became tighter and tighter. Xia Lingling struggled as she gradually lost her strength. Her body went limp as it hung in that slender palm. Young princess. Miao Jingwei cried out loudly as he looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. She is the current monarch's most doted little princess. If you really kill her, you won't be able to live either. Yiqing Luo glanced at him smilingly. Really? Even if you're from another continent. However, since he killed the little princess of the Northern Wave continent, even if the sovereign chased him to the other continents, it would still be a matter of course. Miao Jingwei advised loudly. Furthermore, you killed a member of the royal family in public. Not only will you die, but even your family will be buried with you. Do you really want to show off? Miao Jingwei had not expected Yiqing Luo to really take action, to strangle Xia Lingling to death. Yiqing Luo responded indifferently as though she didn't mind it at all. She retracted her gaze and stared at Xia Lingling, who no longer had the strength to resist, in her palm. What you said seems very interesting. Even I am a little eager to try. The onlookers. Did this girl's brain have to be so elegant and refined? Miao Jingwei. Being deflated for a moment, he couldn't think of any words to stop her. Yiqing Luo lowered her brows. Then I'll kill her now and see how exciting it is to kill a member of the royal family. Saying that, her 5 fingers slightly tightened. Stop. Suddenly, a voice filled with anger was heard from the direction of the main hall. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo felt a burst of powerful profound energy, pressing towards her face. Yiqing Luo originally only wanted to scare Xia Lingling. Chapter 2391. The moment Xia Lingling was thrown out, the dark force was retracted. Yiqing Luo's gaze calmly looked towards the direction where the profound energy came from. She saw a woman dressed in a hibiscus brocade dress. She had one arm around Xia Lingling's shoulder and was whispering something to her. The woman's hair was combed in an extremely complicated way. There were a few extremely magnificent and luxurious gold and silver hairpins in her hair, as well as a dangling butterfly hairpin. It made the woman look even more beautiful. When he saw the man's face clearly, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. As the saying goes, enemies don't meet unless they're enemies. It was too much of a coincidence. Who would have thought that he would still be able to meet this fellow in the northern Billow continent? He could be considered as an old acquaintance whom he had met a few times. That woman was none other than a stranger. She was the one whom Yiqing Luo had met previously when she was establishing the World Mercenary Group. Blue Dragon Mercenary Group leader's little lover, Lan Ling Nuo. She was the princess of the East Wave continent who was narcissistic to the extreme. The last time they met was during the Southern Continent's Academy Exchange Conference. Last time he was focused on dealing with the conspiracy of the Dark Forces. Throwing Lan Ling Nuo and Ji Tsangtian to one side. She did not pay attention to it. Who would have thought that she would actually be able to return alive from the flame lair? TSK, Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings. But she didn't see Lan Ling Nuo's loyal Ji Tsangtian who loved her to the bone. Instead, the person standing behind her was a 23 or 24-year-old man with an imposing appearance. Yiqing Luo only took a glance at that man. She knew that the dark force that had stopped her from pinching Xia Lingling was released by this man. Lin Ling, what happened? Lan Ling Nuo wrapped her arms around Xia Lingling's shoulders. When she saw that Xia Lingling's delicate and pretty face had turned red and swollen like a pig's head, she furrowed her brows as if she was feeling indignant on Xia Lingling's behalf. However, in Lan Ling Nuo's heart, she was secretly laughing at Xia Lingling's current appearance. Xia Lingling was the most pampered little princess of the Northern Waves continent. She, Lan Ling Nuo, was the most pampered princess of the East Wave continent and also the #1 beauty of the East Wave continent. On the surface, she seemed to be on good terms with Xia Lingling. But in reality there was still a little bit of competition between them. After all, the two of them had similar statuses and ages. There would always be people who would compare the two of them. In Lan Ling Nuo's heart, Xia Lingling could be considered a very pretty girl. Moreover, he was younger than her and had the playfulness and cuteness of a girl. Now that Lan Ling Nuo saw Xia Lingling in such a sorry state and was as ugly as a pig's head, Lan Ling Nuo felt an indescribable joy in her heart. Xia Lingling's heart was filled with fear and hatred towards Yiqing Luo, totally not knowing Lan Ling Nuo's true thoughts. She saw her old friend had saved her. Xia Lingling felt aggrieved and finally had a place to vent. She cried out with a wah, and threw herself into Lan Ling Nuo's arms. His face that was swollen like a pig's head was covered with snot and tears again. Lan Ling Nuo resisted the urge to push Xia Lingling away. She pretended to be gentle and said, "Lingling, don't cry. This time when I came to North Wave Continent, I specially brought along Uncle Jun's guard, Yuji. He is the strongest person in East Wave Continent." When Xia Lingling heard this, she immediately raised her head and looked at Lan Ling Nuo with hope in her eyes. Chapter 2392. Saying that, Xia Lingling raised her chin. "She just strangled my neck. Get your guards to strangle her neck and torture her viciously." Lan Ling Nuo looked down. Indeed, she saw a circle of red finger marks on Xia Lingling's neck. Lan Ling Nuo looked towards the direction of Xia Lingling's finger. When her gaze was fixed on Yiqing Luo, the glint in her eyes flickered for a moment. But after seeing Yiqing Luo's unfamiliar face, Lan Ling Nuo then regained her senses as the expression on her face revealed some awkwardness and flustered. Lan Ling Nuo clenched her fists tightly as she suppressed the indescribable uneasiness in her chest. Just now, in that instant when her gaze landed on the figure of the girl in the red dress, she actually felt that young lady looked exactly like her nightmare, Yiqing Luo. The same red dress like fire. The same figure. The same aura. But that face was unfamiliar. It must be an illusion. She had suffered too much pain in Yiqing Luo's nightmare. So when she saw the young lady dressed in red, she felt that she looked like Yiqing Luo. The young lady in front of her looked so ordinary. How could it be Yiqing Luo, that slut? After brainwashing himself for a while, Lan Ling Nuo's heart, which had been beating restlessly, finally had some peace. Lan Ling Nuo's gaze towards Yiqing Luo flashed with a trace of murderous intent. Just because this young lady, like Yiqing Luo, that slut, liked to wear a fiery long dress, she also wanted this young lady to disappear from this world. Lan Ling Nuo pretended to feel heartache as she hugged Xia Lingling's shoulders tightly. Her expression sunk as she looked at the man beside her. "Yuji, catch that slut who hurt little region princess." When that man heard that, his brows creased slightly as though he was slightly displeased. But after seeing Lan Ling Nuo's urging gaze, he still unwillingly took a step forward. Yuji's expression was indifferent as his brows were filled with arrogance. He lightly swept a glance towards Yiqing Luo's direction as he spoke impatiently. "Follow me obediently, or do you want to suffer?" "TSK. So confident?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she gazed at Yuji with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The gloomy luster in her eyes flickered incessantly. "Yuji. Mystery?" For some reason, It reminded her of the netherworld she had met in the 21st century as well as Johan and Yu knew. They were all surnamed Yu. It was a coincidence. Or, this Yuji was in cahoots with those people? It seems like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I hope you can still be so courageous in the future. Yuji sneered. His words had just ended when his figure was like a tiger, locking onto Yiqing Luo's direction at lightning speed. The onlookers might not be able to tell. But Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. When the gloomy silence came, an extremely strange aura suddenly surged around him. The black mist-like aura wrapped around secluded silence bit by bit, forming circles and circles of vortexes. In an instant it was right in front of Yiqing Luo. What a strange aura. It looked similar to the mysterious Yin energy. But this was definitely not a power from the dark forces. It was even more terrifying than the power of the dark forces. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as her heart trembled slightly. Just as that aura was about to close in, Yiqing Luo's slender hand flipped. A burst of raging air wave was released from her palm. Bam bam bam, two bursts of energy instantly collided together. Chapter 2393. After the energy collided, the surrounding air seemed to have solidified. Yiqing Luo and Yuji both took a few steps back at the same time. After Yuji steadied himself, his expression congealed as a glint of astonishment flashed past his eyes. He frowned as he examined Yiqing Luo. You? Who exactly are you? Naturally an ordinary person. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she smiled sweetly, but this East Continent's guard seems to be very surprised that I can take on your attack? Don't tell me, you think that no one in Nirvana realm can take on your attack? The expression on Yuji's face turned stiff. The arrogance in his eyes gradually turned gloomy. Although Yiqing Luo was smiling on the surface. However, her heart gradually sank a little. What she said just now was just to test Yuji. This Yuji was indeed not an ordinary person. He indeed thought so. No one in the entire Nirvana realm could take on his attack. This wasn't just his one-sided self-confidence. But he could be sure of his own power in Nirvana realm. There was a possibility that this Yuji was really Yuhan, Yu knew and the same group of people. Then what was Yuji's motive for appearing here? Could it be? It was for her again? Because she came to North Continent? Qing Luo, you know that person? Peach unknowingly walked to her side as she looked at Yuji without blinking. Yiqing Luo regained her senses as she hid the deep thoughts in her eyes. No. That person. I actually don't have any information about him in my mind. Peach's tone was astonished. It can be said that I can remember all the people with some ability and status in this Nirvana realm clearly. This person can fight evenly with you. It's impossible that I don't have any information about him. But in fact, she indeed didn't have any information about Yuji. Even the name Yuji was unfamiliar to her. Hearing Peach's words, Yiqing Luo was now completely sure that Yuji was not someone from the lower realm. He and Xiao Wu are from the same place. Dispel the idea of investigating him. Yiqing Luo said solemnly. She pulled Peaches behind her. After ascertaining that Yuji was someone from another world outside the Nirvana realm, Yiqing Luo became increasingly vigilant towards him. Peach was stunned. Sure enough, she didn't dare to be interested in Yuji anymore. If he was not someone from the Nirvana realm, then it was better not to investigate him. If he were to investigate like this, he would lose his life. That would not be worth it. Yuji, what are you still standing there for? Kill her now. Kill her. Lan Ling Nua saw Yuji still standing at the original spot, staring at Yiqing Luo in a daze as she instantly panicked. Yuji's face darkened as he glanced at her coldly. Lan Ling Nua was so frightened that she immediately shut up. Yuji retracted his vision and with a scrutinizing gaze, he sized up Yiqing Luo from head to toe. It's rare for me to see an opponent who can match up to me, young lady. Let me see how your ability is. The corner of Yuji's lips curled up into a cold smile as he suddenly released his profound strength. The surging profound chi instantly formed a vortex. Like raging waves, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pressed down on Yiqing Luo. This wave of attacks. Compared to before, he was clearly much stronger. Apparently he was serious about it. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. This time round, she didn't choose to rush up to face it head-on. Instead, she swiftly flipped her hand as she struck out a palm wind. Borrowing the force of the dark force that was coming towards him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Her body spun violently. Chapter 2394. Bam. The palm strike landed. At the place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier, the ground exploded, blasting out a huge deep pit. Stones flew in all directions, and the entire backyard had already turned into a mess. Whereas Yiqing Luo flipped over and leaped onto the roof. Immediately she borrowed the force and landed behind Yuji. Her line of sight lightly swept past that deep pit. Between her brows was a sheet of coldness. Yuji's appearance made Yiqing Luo raise her guard. Whether it was because she felt too good about herself, that Yuji's motive was for her. Or perhaps Yuji had other motives. It was better to be safe than sorry. She couldn't let Yuji see through her identity. Because of that, she would try her best to avoid fighting with Yuji. Her motive in the northern continent was to bring Miao Rongrong away, to let Miao Rongrong help Long Yunjian to suppress the goo poison. She didn't want to complicate matters, delaying her time. But Yuji obviously did it on purpose to arouse her fighting spirit, to arouse her to fight with him. After this wave of attack was avoided by Yiqing Luo again, Yuji followed closely and launched another attack. Both sides were entangled. One person pressed forward step by step. The other kept on dodging. The battle between the top experts made the surrounding spectators dumbstruck. They didn't even dare to make any sound of breathing in case they disturbed the two who were fighting. After 10 over moves, Yuji was already impatient. Young lady hiding like a stray dog, what kind of hero is that? Yiqing Luo stood steadily, her long and narrow eyes outlined as she smiled lightly. I'm not a hero. Yuji's expression was gloomy, staring at Yiqing Luo's elegant face. He suddenly opened his mouth. You're intentionally not fighting with me, trying to hide your true profound grade? Yiqing Luo raised her brows, smiling calmly. Oh, if you want to think so, you can think so. Yuji suddenly narrowed his eyes, pulled out a long sword from his waist, and slashed horizontally. The long sword was emitting a strange black chi. Casually waving it, Yiqing Luo was able to clearly feel that berserk energy assaulting her. How terrifying was it? The strange black aura quickly spread in the air. Like a surging tide, it swept over. Yiqing Luo's legs turned stiff, and under that pressure, she was unable to move her body. Qing Luo. Peach, who was behind her, sensed Yiqing Luo's abnormality and her expression changed drastically. Peach's specialty was to conceal her identity and investigate all kinds of secrets. In terms of combat, he could only barely protect himself. Peach wanted to pounce forward and block this attack for Yiqing Luo. However, her speed could not match up to that profound energy attack at all. In the time it took for a breath, that powerful force had already covered the sky and the earth and pressed down directly. Just at this moment, a figure suddenly stood in front of Yiqing Luo. The man raised a hand. His slender fingers spread open slightly. In his palm, a white light was faintly discernible. When Yuji's horizontal slash of sword chi collided with that person's palm, all of the profound energy in the surroundings suddenly started to distort. Round after round, it gradually disappeared into that person's palm. The gale gradually subsided. The surging roars gradually subsided. Everything quietened down. Heavens! Heavens, so handsome, so handsome. She actually blocked that person's attack with her bare hands. Chapter 2395. The surrounding crowd all stared blankly at the man who suddenly appeared. Yiqing Luo also regained her senses at this moment. The stiff feeling of being unable to move and the oppressive feeling of his body finally disappeared. Her long curly lashes trembled slightly. Her gaze shifted upwards. She saw a tall man standing in front of her. His back was facing her. His broad back was straight and taut, like a bamboo in the wind, blocking her behind his back. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She had yet to ponder over the current situation. The man standing in front of her turned around. Yiqing Luo took a step back. Raising her head, she met with a pair of glass-like, jet-black eyes. This was an extremely handsome face, and between his brows, there was an air of refined elegance. Although he was cultured and refined, but the man's imposing manner was extremely noble and awe-inspiring. Miss, are you all right? The man opened his mouth and his voice was like flowing water, extremely pleasant to the ears. Yiqing Luo was stunned for a moment as she slowly shook her head. The man's thin lips curled upwards as his smile was like a spring breeze. His gentleness seemed as though it was emitted from his bones. It was like a clear spring, able to cleanse one's heart. Brother Gu? Suddenly Lan Ling Nua's joyful voice was heard from behind. Following that, a pungent fragrance assaulted her nostrils. Yiqing Luo took a few steps back as she didn't conceal her disgust as she covered her nose. Lan Ling Nua's heart was placed on the man as she totally didn't care about Yiqing Luo's reaction. Lan Ling Nua was like a butterfly as she pounced into the man's arms. Brother Gu, you're actually here too. If I knew that South Waves Continent sent you over, I would have gone over to South Waves Continent to be together with you. The man gave a warm smile as he raised his hand and caressed Lan Ling Nua's hair. We haven't seen each other for 2 years and Ling Nua has already grown into a young lady and you've become even prettier. Lan Ling Nua's eyes widened in joy as she put on a bashful look as she lowered her eyelids. Brother Gu, Nua misses you so much. Looking at Lan Ling Nua's bashful look, it was filled with the desire to seduce a man. Yiqing Luo silently lit a candle for Ji Tsang Tian in her heart. Xia Lingling, who was by the side, heard Lan Ling Nua's voice and immediately went up. Brother Gu? Brother Gu is here. Xia Lingling's tears rolled down her cheeks once again when she saw that warm smile. Lingling has also grown up. The man paused. Lingling, what happened to your face? This question made Xia Lingling feel aggrieved. She put her head next to the man's arm and cried out her grievances. While the man was being pincered by Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua, Yiqing Luo had already retreated to Peach's side, distancing herself from those few people by a few steps. Peach regained her senses from the fright just now. Her quick-witted eyes looked at Yiqing Luo anxiously. He grabbed Yiqing Luo's hand and asked in a low voice, "Are you hurt?" "Nothing." Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. "Who is that person?" "South Billow Continent's Wind Valley Sect's young sect master, Gu Jingyu." Peach glanced at the man, lowered her voice, and briefly explained his information. Then he said, "East Billow Continent's monarch Lan Ling Nua has always had a soft spot for young sect master Gu. Have special feelings for him?" Then Ji Tsang Tian. Yiqing Luo silently lit a candle for Ji Tsang Tian once again. For Lan Ling Nua, Ji Tsang Tian could be said to be deserted by everyone. In the end, Lan Ling Nua merely treated Ji Tsang Tian as a spare tire. Chapter 2396. Why are all the famous people from the various continents heading to the northern continent? Yiqing Luo asked in puzzlement. Peach was stunned, her beautiful eyes widened. You don't know? What do I need to know? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes in a daze. She had been in the northern continent for at least half a month. Had she missed any news? Northern Continent Qinghua Sect's sovereign's 50th birthday is 10 days later. Peach held her forehead and shook her head helplessly. This news has spread like wildfire in the entire northern continent. I thought you would know even if I didn't say it. Birthday? Yiqing Luo wondered if it was too much of a coincidence. The moment she arrived in the northern continent, it wasn't the sovereign's birthday. It was the Miao tribe's holy maiden selection. Did it need to be so lively? Hearing the second half of Peach's sentence, Yiqing Luo shook her head decisively. The entire northern continent is buzzing with news. I only know one thing. War Monarch is searching for me in the entire continent. They are all here to pay their respects to the sovereign, and also to find out the current development situation of the northern continent. Peach's vision shot towards the direction of the main hall. Nowadays there are many people from various external forces in Qinghua City. Just like what happened between Young Region Lord and East Lan Region Lord, it will soon spread to their continent. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened, which means this face of mine, this identity, has once again become famous in the Nirvana realm? You can say that. Peach nodded with a certain look. Yiqing Luo. Should she consider changing her face again? Peach suddenly bumped her arm and said with a mysterious smile, "Speaking of which, young Lord Gu has a very good reputation in the Nirvana realm. He is graceful, gentle and refined, and treats people sincerely. Anyone who sees him will have a good impression of him. He just saved you, and he even used such a cool and handsome appearance to save you. Don't you feel the slightest bit of affection?" Yiqing Luo's face turned white. "Do you think no matter how handsome he is, can he be more handsome than Xian?" Peach remained silent and shook her head. "No." "Then that's it." Yiqing Luo expressed that after looking at Xian for a long time, other men, no matter how they looked, were all trash. Only Xian. It was just a faint smile. They could make her feel refreshed to the bone. But, even if he isn't moved, he probably won't hate it either. It's hard to hate someone like that. Peach's finger pointed at Yiqing Luo's slender brows. "As long as you see young matriarch Gu over here, it will wrinkle into a ball." Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Indeed, Gu Jingyu had a noble and gentle temperament like that of a prince from head to toe. No one could hate him. This was where his charm lay. However, for some reason, Yiqing Luo somehow felt that something was amiss. Perhaps she was really used to Xian's charm. As for other men, no matter what type they were, she was completely immune. In her eyes, other men were nothing more than two eyes, a nose and a mouth. There was no difference. The two of them were talking. Suddenly, a clear and deep voice sounded in her ears. "Miss, I apologize on behalf of Princess Ling Nua for her rudeness just now. I hope that Miss will not bother with her." Yiqing Luo turned around immediately. She saw Gu Jingyu looking at her with a faint and warm smile. His face was full of sincerity. Chapter 2397. Gu Jingyu gazed at the young lady in front of him. He could feel that the young lady didn't like him. He was a little surprised. It could be said that until now, although not everyone who had seen him would like him and get close to him for no reason. But at least they would absolutely not have any disgusted feelings towards him. Even in the Gu Feng sect, the few brothers who were fighting for power had not ignited the flames of war on him. He was extremely confident in his own charisma. This was the first time he felt an unpleasant emotion from a young lady. Yiqing Luo looked at him in the eye. After a long time, her eyes revealed a mocking gaze. "Looks like Mr. is very keen on being a hero to save the damsel in distress." Gu Jingyu was stunned and was suddenly enlightened. A glint of light flashed across his gentle eyes. His thin lips rose. "Miss Observation is really meticulous." He had not expected that this young lady could actually tell that he didn't have any genuine feelings towards Lan Ling Nua or Xia Ling Ling. And he really didn't want to have too much involvement with them. But the two of them were the princess of the two continents. He couldn't spoil the relationship between the two continents. Yiqing Luo's words was also reminding him. If he really didn't want to have too much involvement with the two of them, then don't self-righteously apologize for the two of them. Otherwise, the two of them might think that he lowered his head and apologized to her because of them, which would only make Lan Ling Nua even more entangled. Of course, Yiqing Luo wasn't reminding Gu Jingyu out of kindness. If Gu Jingyu didn't understand the meaning of her words, or perhaps Gu Jingyu actually liked to make use of the young lady's affection towards him to achieve his motive, Yiqing Luo wouldn't bother about it. The two of them called me brother, so I naturally apologize to you as their brother. Gu Jingyu's eyes were like gurgling warm water, seeping into one's heart bit by bit. He glanced sideways at Lan Ling Nua and Xia Ling Ling beside him and spoke in a warm voice. "Miss, after all it's soon Qinghua Sect's sovereign's 50th birthday. Perhaps you have nothing to fear if you make a move here, but later on, your friend's painstaking establishment here will definitely be affected." He glanced meaningfully at the direction of Peach. Yiqing Luo's smile stiffened slightly. She had to admit, Gu Jingyu had poked her soft spot. Indeed. After all, Lan Ling Nua was here to attend the 50th birthday of the Qinghua sect master. Xia Lingling was the little princess of the Northern Wave continent after all. She was fearless. However, the restaurants that Peach had painstakingly established in the Northern Wave continent, as well as the informants that she had sent out to gather information, would all be affected. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as she nodded lightly. "That's true, many thanks for Master's reminder." Then, "Will Master please let the two princess make up for today's loss to the Peach Blossom restaurant and I will be merciful enough to forgive you." "Hey, you bitch." Hearing this, Xia Lingling roared in anger. Just as he opened his mouth, he met with Yiqing Luo's expression which seemed like a smile yet not a smile. Xia Lingling immediately felt a chill down her spine as she thought of the slap she had given her. He forced the insulting words back into his throat. "What right do you have to ask us for compensation? This is clearly your..." "Me?" Yiqing Luo interrupted Xia Lingling's words with a smile. "If it wasn't for Little Region Princess creating trouble for no reason at the Peach Blossom restaurant, bullying the commoners and smashing through the main hall and backyard's doors. If it wasn't for Little Region Princess seeking justice for Little Prince, insulting me over and over again. If it wasn't for Little Region Princess dragging East Lawn Princess to make a move on me." Chapter 2398. Xia Lingling was so choked by these questions that she couldn't say a word for a long time. Lan Ling Nua's expression darkened, and she was about to speak. Gu Jingyu's gentle gaze swept over her. "This young lady is right. The two of you do have to shoulder this responsibility. Don't let others laugh at you." Even Gu Jingyu said so. Lan Ling Nua did not dare to retort. The two of them looked at each other, feeling wronged. Soon after, they pursed their lips and weakly replied, "We understand." Gu Jingyu's eyes revealed a look of admiration. He nodded at the two of them and said, "It is the greatest virtue to know your mistakes and correct them. Don't be willful in the future." He was praised by Gu Jingyu. The displeasure in Lan Ling Nua's heart was instantly swept away. Xia Lingling was displeased. However, he was pulled by Lan Ling Nuo and he could not defeat that slut, so he could only suppress the fury in his heart and walk to Miao Jingwei's side, who was being simply bandaged by the guards. Miao Jingwei was initially ignored. The light that had just saved Xia Lingling was taken away by Gu Jingyu. He was furious. He saw Xia Lingling walking towards him. He immediately adjusted the expression on his face. Little commandery princess. Big brother Wei. Xia Lingling saw Miao Jingwei's doting expression and couldn't help but feel wronged. She hugged Miao Jingwei's arm. Miao Jingwei sighed as if he was distressed. Xia Lingling buried her head in his shoulder and whispered, "Big brother Wei, don't worry. I definitely won't let this go. That bitch dared to injure you, I will definitely avenge you. Since we've come to an agreement, I'd like to ask the troublemakers to scram as far away as possible. Don't affect the restaurant's business." Yi Qing Luo waved her hand immodestly and turned towards that young man. "Let's go, sister will bring you to apply the medicine." The young man looked around in fear. Yi Qing Luo's hand had already grabbed onto his wrist. The young man was startled. A green light flashed in his eyes. Those tiny hands. It was extremely warm and soft. It actually made him feel inexplicably at ease, and he wanted to trust her. This was a feeling he had never felt before. Yi Qing Luo had just pulled the young man a few steps. A man's deep and gentle voice immediately came from behind her. "Miss, I am the South Billow Continent's Wind Valley Sect's young sect master Gu Jingyu. Can Miss tell me your name?" Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps and lightly spat out two words. "Yi Luo." "Yi Luo." Gu Jingyu murmured these two words as a warm smile appeared on his face. "Miss Yi, it's nice to meet you." That smile was indeed as gentle as the wind. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled faintly and nodded her head. "Yes, I'm very happy." Saying that, Yi Qing Luo had already pulled the young man and turned a corner, leaving the crowd's line of sight. Peach retracted her gaze and shifted it to Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu was staring at Yi Qing Luo's departing back view without blinking, as his eyes were in a trance, not knowing what he was thinking about. "Young Master Gu, Maya Luo has already left. Why are you still staring at him? Could it be?" Taozi looked at Gu Jingyu with a teasing smile. Gu Jingyu's gaze drifted away as two bundles of red appeared on his face. "Miss Tao has misunderstood, I'm just..." "Just what?" Taozi's brows rose as her smile became even more ambiguous. Gu Jingyu explained with some anxiety, "I'm just admiring a lady like Miss Yi. If I can become close friends with such a lady, it would definitely be very interesting." Chapter 2399. Gu Jingyu felt uneasy from Peach's laughter. His gentle brows flashed past a sliver of awkwardness and unnaturalness. His long lashes fluttered rapidly. This made one couldn't bear to tease him like this. Taozi put away her playful smile and glanced at the two princesses behind him, whose faces were full of bitterness and hatred. "Young Master Gu, you'd better send these two princesses back to the palace first." Gu Jingyu looked at the direction where Yi Qing Luo had left as his thin lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Lan Ling Nuo, who was behind him, had already pursed her lips tightly as she spoke in an unhappy coquettish voice. "Brother Gu, let's go. Second young Master Miao's injuries cannot wait any longer." Lan Ling Nuo had always been good at observing men's expressions, guessing what the man was thinking about. She naturally could tell. Gu Jingyu was probably interested in that lady called Yi Luo. That was not just so-called admiration. Moreover, quite a number of admirers started from admiration. She had liked Gu Jingyu for so many years. And for Gu Jingyu, she had rejected so many outstanding men who were devoted to her. She absolutely could not let Gu Jingyu fall in love with anyone other than her. She wanted to strangle Gu Jingyu's admiration towards Yi Luo in the cradle. On the other side, Yi Qing Luo led the young man back to the basement which she had been staying in for the past few days. This was Peach Blossom 3000's secret base in Northern Continent. From the moment the young man entered the basement, that pair of bright eyes unconsciously widened as he looked left and right in disbelief. It was as though this basement, to him, was extremely novel. After passing through several layers of mechanisms, Yi Qing Luo led him to a bedroom door and stopped. She knocked on the room door. A slight noise was heard from inside the room and very quickly someone came over to open the door. The person in the room was Miao Yi. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, her quick-witted eyes lit up. "Sister Luo, you're back." Miao Yi's words had just ended. Her body was pushed away violently. A black figure suddenly scuttled into Yi Qing Luo's arms. A furry little head rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's arms. "Sister, Kitty Kitty missed you so much." Yi Qing Luo rubbed Kitty Li's little head. Let this girl stay in the bedroom and wait for me. It was really hard on her, an active kitten. Miao Yi was pushed by Kitty Li and fell to the side. Be careful. The youth behind him immediately reached out to support him. Both of them fell to the ground. Fortunately, neither of them were injured. Kitty Li realized that she had caused trouble. She scratched her head and stuck out her tongue at the two of them guiltily. Little brother, I'm sorry. I didn't, miss. Suddenly the young man shouted in shock, interrupting Kitty Li's apology. The young man's hands were placed on Miao Yi's shoulders. His eyes were wide open, and his entire body was tensed up due to his agitation. His eyes were filled with shock and joy. Miao Yi was stunned at first, but when she saw the youth's face, her expression froze for a moment. Miss, why are you here? I've been looking for you. The young man chattered excitedly. However, the look in Miao Yi's eyes forced him to stop speaking. Yiqing Luo took a panoramic view of their expressions. She raised her brows slightly as she thoughtfully swept a glance at the both of them. You two know each other? Furthermore, their relationship was apparently extraordinary. Chapter 2400. Looking at Miao Yi's flustered expression. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her gaze wandered back and forth between her and the young man with interest. This blatant gaze. It made Miao Yi's hair stand on end. She lowered her eyelids as her gaze avoided Yiqing Luo's eyes. The young man also stood up at this moment. A pair of bright eyes stared at Miao Yi without blinking. Kitty Li also laid quietly beside Yiqing Luo as she looked at the both of them in puzzlement. The scene became awkward bit by bit. After some time, Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze as she walked into the bedroom. Kitty Li, take out the first aid box. He's injured and needs some treatment. Kitty Li responded and skipped over to the side to take the first aid box. When the two of them heard that, they heaved a sigh of relief. Miao Yi looked at Yiqing Luo's back as her eyes flashed with a trace of struggle. But in the end, she still shut her eyes tightly. The two hands hanging by her side clenched into fists. It was until Kitty Li brought the first aid box over when Miao Yi stretched out her hand and took the first aid box. Let me do it. Miao Yi took the first aid box as she walked towards the young man. Sit over there. The young man opened his mouth but eventually didn't say anything. He remained silent as he walked to the chair which Miao Yi pointed at and sat down. He allowed Miao Yi to tear his clothes. The injuries on the young man were mostly superficial wounds, and there were quite a number of blood stains. After seeing those scars, Miao Yi's fingers trembled slightly. Who injured you? Miao Yi pursed her lips as she carefully and gently wiped the young man's wounds. If one listened carefully, one could even hear the slight tremble in Miao Yi's tone. No one, it's me. The young man frowned slightly in pain, but he was afraid that Miao Yi would be worried, so he didn't make a sound. Miao Jingwei, Xia Lingling. Yiqing Luo calmly spat out two names. I've returned half of his injuries to the two of them. The remaining half you can get it yourselves. Miao Yi's hand paused slightly. Her eyes drooped downwards. Her fine long hair covered half of her face. Indistinctly, one could see her reddened eyes. Thank you, Miao Yi said after a long time. Yiqing Luo smiled and stretched out her hand towards Kitty Li. Kitty Li, let's go, sister will bring you out to shop. Kitty Li's eyes lit up and she pounced over. Can we really go shopping? The Battle King's mansion has already withdrawn their search for me, so we can openly wander around. Yiqing Luo hugged Kitty Li and brought her out of the room. That, Miao Yi suddenly spoke in a low voice. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted slightly. Miao Yi's eyes reddened as she looked at the young man's wounds. She looked down and a tear rolled down from the corner of her eye. She said again, thank you. Take good care of him. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Yiqing Luo knew that Miao Yi's first sentence of thank you was to thank her for saving this young man and avenging him. As for the second thank you, he was thanking her for not forcing her to reveal her relationship with the young man. Sister. Yi Luo. The young man's slightly hoarse voice called out Yiqing Luo's name. He raised his head and there was a faint green glow in his bright and clear eyes. He said sincerely, Sister Yi Luo, my name is Shen Gui, I will definitely repay sister. Yiqing Luo gave the both of them a brilliant and gentle smile. I'll wait for you. Saying that, she pulled Kitty Li out of the bedroom. Chapter 2401. Kitty Li, who had been locked up for a few days, was finally able to walk on the streets openly. Kitty Li was extremely excited. Carrying the tiny Shiju, she scurried left and right. Looking at Kitty Li's lively figure, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. This was the vigor that a young lady should have. The surrounding people, because of the search by the Battle Prince's mansion, they were extremely curious about Yiqing Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo walking on the streets, the commoners started to point fingers. But no one dared to step forward and disturb this mysterious lady, who made the Battle Prince's mansion search and withdraw the search. She circled around Qinghua City for about half a round. Kitty Li was still excitedly wandering in front of every stall. Yiqing Luo followed behind, strolling leisurely. Suddenly, her ears moved slightly, a trace of a meaningful smile flashed past her brows. Her peripheral vision seemed to inadvertently sweep behind her. Then she saw a few people in twos and threes, intentionally or unintentionally following behind her. The smile on her pink lips became thicker. The other party looked like they couldn't hold it in. Not sure if they were from the Battle Prince's mansion or the Miao tribe. Yiqing Luo pretended not to discover that she was being followed. She slowly walked to Kitty Li's side, rubbed her little head. Tired? Not tired. Kitty Li's body was already hung with a few toys, and her hands were holding several snacks. Even little Shiju, who was lying on Kitty Li's shoulder, was holding a candied haw with both claws, licking it vigorously. These two beasts looked like they hadn't sensed that someone was following them. Even if you're not tired, you can't play anymore, come again tomorrow. Yiqing Luo said softly. Kitty Li's bright eyes dimmed slightly. She pouted her lips, lowered her head unhappily. Kitty Li still wants to continue shopping. It's getting late. If Xiao Wuwu comes back and finds that we're not around, she will definitely be worried about us. Yiqing Luo hooked Kitty Li's shoulder. There's still some trouble to settle. Kitty Li blinked her round beautiful eyes. Suddenly hearing the latter half of Yiqing Luo's sentence, her eyes widened in sudden realization. Soon after, she angrily clenched her little paws and muttered, "A bunch of idiots. How dare they disturb Big Sister's shopping with Kitty? Kitty will scratch them to death." The two of them left the bustling street one after another. During this period of time, Yiqing Luo had been cooped up in the basement of Peach Blossom Restaurant. He wasn't very clear about the route to Qinghua City. To draw out their stalker, he had to find a quiet place. Furthermore, if they were in Qinghua City, once he made a move he would probably alert the enemy. He wanted to find out from these people who were following him which side they were from. He couldn't do anything in Qinghua City. Yiqing Luo brought the kitten along with her. On the surface, she appeared to be calm and collected as they discussed the little girl's topics with each other. He walked towards a secluded and quiet place. After walking for about half an hour, the two of them had already walked out of Joy City. After leaving Joy City, they walked for another half an hour. In front of them was a small path in the forest. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with messy bamboos and various kinds of trees. Yiqing Luo and Kitty Li looked at each other and stepped into the forest. The moment they stepped into the forest, Yiqing Luo felt a strong murderous intent spreading throughout the entire forest. It looked like those people following them couldn't wait any longer. As expected, the next moment, more than 10 black figures surrounded them from all directions. Chapter 2402. These 10 black-robed men's abilities were all around the Earth Profound Realm. Yiqing Luo swiftly retreated a few steps. Her gaze swept across the surrounding 10 black-robed men. From their dressing, Yiqing Luo couldn't tell if they were from the Battle King's manor or the Miao tribe. But, Yiqing Luo knew. In order to kill her or capture her, the other party had really put in a lot of effort. If it was anyone else, these 10 Earth Profound Realm black-robed men made their move. Who else would be able to escape? Seeing Yiqing Luo evading their attacks, the other 10 black-robed men swiftly pounced forward. Momentarily, the entire forest shook violently. A strong gust of wind blew and leaves fluttered. Indistinctly there were mournful cries. In just a moment, the forest gradually regained its original quietness. The powerful Shen waves in the surroundings also gradually subsided. Yiqing Luo dusted her hands and stepped on one of the black-robed men. Kitty Li bent down and forcefully tore off the mask of one of the black-robed men. That black-robed man's face was filled with bloody scratches. This was Kitty Li's masterpiece. Who asked these baddies to disturb her and her sister's interest in shopping? If it weren't for them, she would still be happily shopping with her elder sister. She didn't scratch them to death. That was considered as showing mercy. Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked the black-robed man. The black-clothed man who attacked her earlier dropped a token. Kitty Li immediately picked up that token. On the token there was a huge symbol, Battle. Assassins sent by the Battle King's manor? Although the 10 black-robed men were brutally tortured by Yiqing Luo, they were unable to resist. But their imposing manner had not diminished. A pair of vengeful eyes seemed to be telling her that they would rather die than submit. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she nodded in understanding. You are the soldiers under General Battle King. Only soldiers had such an unyielding spirit. Those black-robed men were slightly stunned, as though they didn't expect Yiqing Luo to see through their identities. Very quickly, one of the black-robed men shouted sternly, "We have nothing to do with the general. Kill us if you want, but don't casually give us identities." Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laughed out when she heard that. This black-clothed man must be joking, right? Denying the relationship? Was there anyone who would deny it with such a straight face? That general? Wasn't it a blatant admission that he was a soldier of the War King General? Calling off the search for me, then sending his own soldiers to hunt me down. This is the War King's goal. Yiqing Luo raised her brows, but just based on these small fries like you won't be able to satisfy me, I think. It's better to let the Battle King do it himself. The black-clothed men looked ferocious. Some of them were so angry that they coughed violently. They had their own pride and self-respect. His skills were inferior and he was tortured by a young girl. It was already the most shameful thing in their lives. And now he was even insulted by that young lady. Kill us if you dare. Judging from your young age, I'm afraid you haven't seen a dead person before. What's wrong? You're just talking big? Kill us. The black-robed men flew into a rage out of humiliation and ridiculed Yiqing Luo. They didn't believe that this innocent and harmless-looking young lady dared to kill them. Sister, why would anyone want to die so badly? Kitty Lee looked strangely at those black-robed men and asked. Chapter 2403. Then should we grant them their wish? Kitty Lee blinked her eyes. Since they want to die so badly, and your sister is such a kind person, naturally we should grant them their wish. Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked at the black-robed men lying on the ground. Don't say I didn't give you a chance to live, it's you who strongly requested to die. The black-robed men revealed their disdain. They couldn't believe that this beautiful girl, who was only 14 or 15 years old, would dare to kill more than a dozen men like them. Moreover, the young lady wanted to kill them. That would depend on whether she still had the chance. Just at this moment, a rustling sound was heard from the bushes in the forest. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as her gaze swept across the surroundings. The dense grass swayed non-stop, and the rustling sound was getting closer and closer. There was something in the bushes. One of the black-robed men heard the sound. His face immediately revealed a complacent expression. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped and immediately released her perception. This group of black-robed men still had a backup plan. This was really a big move. From the looks of it, the War King was determined to make her surrender. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as a cold glint flashed past her eyes. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Rustle, rustle, rustle. After a while, in the rustling sound, she saw one after another poisonous snakes spitting out blood with their scarlet tongues scurrying out. Densely packed poisonous snakes, some were huge, some were small. They were entangled together and wriggling continuously. This scene, even Yiqing Luo couldn't help but felt her scalp go numb. The poisonous snakes directly ignored those black-robed men lying on the ground and rushed towards Yiqing Luo one by one. Very quickly, with Yiqing Luo as the center, they surrounded her from all directions. The scarlet tongues made a hissing sound. Ah! Young lady, you're still too inexperienced. The black-robed men saw the poisonous snakes had surrounded Yiqing Luo and Kitty Lee. They also forced themselves to stand up. It was all thanks to these two ignorant young ladies. They didn't choose any place. They just had to come to this deserted forest. Just right for them. To have the chance to attract the poisonous snakes. Battle King had said that this young lady was very sinister and cunning. Moreover, he was an expert in using poison. Naturally, they would have two backup plans. Snake. There are so many snakes, sister. Kitty Lee couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body when she saw the coiled snakes. Kitty Lee was not afraid of snakes. However, it was too disgusting to face so many snakes. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a cold glint shot out from her charming eyes. Don't move. Kitty Lee shrunk beside Yiqing Luo as her sparkling eyes stared vigilantly at those venomous snakes. Ah! Little girl, do you think that if you don't move, these poisonous snakes won't attack you? No matter how strong you are, what can you do in the face of thousands of poisonous snakes? A man in black rubbed his chest and stood up shakily. Kitty Lee grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm as she pursed her lips tightly. Sister, why? They weren't affected by the venomous snakes? Not only was he not affected by the venomous snake. The venomous snakes had bypassed the men in black and were creeping towards them one after another. They have purposely brought scented sachets to ward off poisonous snakes. No wonder Yiqing Luo had always felt that there was a strange smell on those black-robed men. Presumably, it was to disperse these venomous snakes. She chose this forest. It was to prevent alerting the snakes. Chapter 2404. Kitty Lee's eyes widened. Then what should we do? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her gaze swept past those 10 over black-robed men. He was deep in thought. It was not realistic to kill these poisonous snakes. After all, there were at least a few thousand of them in front of him. If he made a move, these venomous snakes would definitely gang up on him. Yiqing Luo was not afraid of the venom. However, it didn't mean that Kitty Lee wasn't afraid. Moreover, these thousands of snakes all had different poisons. He was corroded by the venom. She was also unable to find the corresponding antidote in the shortest time possible. He couldn't take that risk. Little girl, you still want to struggle? The black-robed men looked at the 2 young ladies who were surrounded by the venomous snakes. Earlier they who had their pride abused by Yiqing Luo finally had the feeling of exultation. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, like a poisonous snake's eyes, staring at those black-robed men without blinking. The corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely enchanting cold arc. This smile. The black-clothed men felt their hair stand on end. You can't wait to kill me? The War King is rather impatient. Yiqing Luo smiled calmly, but if I were to die, then no one would be able to cure eldest young Miss Miao's poison. Eldest young Miss Miao? The black-robed men were stunned, not understanding why Yiqing Luo would drag Miao Rongrong into this. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. You still don't know? Your family's little prince was poisoned. Miss Miao used a goo worm to cure the little prince, but she was infected with the residual poison. That was to say, Miss Miao was poisoned because of the young prince. If young Miss Miao's poison flared up, they would definitely blame it on the Battle King's mansion. The black-robed men understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. They frowned slightly. Stop spouting nonsense. These poisonous snakes are not under our control. No matter how glib your tongue is today, as long as we bring your corpse back, our mission will be completed. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The IQ of these people, she really did not want to complain anymore. It was already a miracle that he could survive until now on the battlefield. Now Yiqing Luo was completely certain. These people were sent by the War King's mansion. Moreover, from the looks of it, the Battle King General was determined to kill her to avenge Yuan Kuang. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surrounding venomous snakes as her gaze swiftly swept across the surrounding terrain. If he wanted to use the terrain to deal with these venomous snakes, Yiqing Luo took a look at Kitty Lee beside her. Her fingers tightened. Let Kitty Lee escape from the venomous snakes first. With a flick of her fingers, a feather fan that looked like a blazing flame appeared at her fingertips. Sister. Kitty Lee cried out in shock when she saw Yiqing Luo taking out the glower flame fan. He came to the northern wave continent in order to conceal his identity. Yiqing Luo had kept the glower flame fan all along. After all, the symbol of the red feather fan was too obvious. Do you still remember the footwork that sister taught you? Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and asked. Kitty Lee seemed to have reacted to Yiqing Luo's plan as she hurriedly shook her head. I can't let sister deal with those poisonous snakes alone. I'm not afraid of snakes. The venom of these snakes doesn't work on me, but it doesn't mean that it won't work on you. Leave this place first. Only then can I go all out. Yiqing Luo rubbed her little head. Be good, trust me. Kitty Lee wanted to say something. But seeing Yiqing Luo's resolute gaze and unquestionable tone, she swallowed her words back and spat out 4 words, I know. Star. Chapter 2405. Yiqing Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan in her hands opened up. A burst of majestic profound energy was unleashed from her body. This powerful profound energy. It made those black-robed men's expressions change drastically. Thousands of poisonous snakes, under this powerful atmosphere, wriggled restlessly. Several poisonous snakes flicked their scarlet tongues, as though they were preparing to attack Yiqing Luo together. Suddenly a green figure swept past. A thick palm, pressed on Yiqing Luo's wrist which was holding the glower flame fan, forcefully forcing back all her profound energy. Yiqing Luo was shocked. That man had already thrown something towards the direction of the poisonous snakes. Hiss hiss hiss. The poisonous snakes suddenly twisted in extreme pain as they kept on wriggling. After a while, as though they were escaping for their lives, they scuttled towards the surrounding bushes, leaving this place. In just a moment, the forest full of venomous snakes and murderous aura a moment ago was now completely empty. The black-robed men were stunned. Yiqing Luo was also stunned. She stared blankly at that figure who was blocking in front of her. Why did it feel? This scene was a little familiar? Yiqing Luo blinked as she regained her senses. Master Gu? This person wasn't anyone else. It was the young matriarch of Gu Feng sect whom she met in the Peach Blossom restaurant in the afternoon, Gu Jingyu. In the afternoon when she and Yu Ji were battling. It was also Gu Jingyu who blocked in front of her. How long had it been? It was him again blocking in front of her? History was always shockingly similar. She was saved by Gu Jingyu again. This time she owed a favor. Gu Jingyu turned his head back as his eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment. Miss Yi? How did you? He looked at those 10 over black-robed men as he nodded in understanding. You are being pursued? Yiqing Luo looked at those 10 over black-robed men as she shrugged her shoulders. Very obvious. Need help? Gu Jingyu's gentle lips curled into a smile, as his gaze was gentle like water as he looked at Yiqing Luo's face. His voice was very soft. But in his tone, there was a trace of unintelligible treachery. But Yiqing Luo caught it. She frowned slightly as she raised her head to meet Gu Jingyu's eyes. Was he angry because of her? However, she was even more certain that this seemingly gentle man was definitely not as gentle as he appeared on the surface. Yiqing Luo concealed the deep thoughts in her eyes as she gave a slight smile. These dregs, it's not worthwhile for you to make a move. She did not want to owe Gu Jingyu a third favor. Jun Qingwu had already gone to the upper realm to inform DMO Xian about the situation in the North Continent. Xian would be back soon. If Xian knew that she owed a man 2 favors, he reckoned that the vinegar jar was about to flip over. Without waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak, Yiqing Luo had already walked directly towards those 10 over black-robed men. As she walked, she kept the devouring flame fan back into the profound phoenix ring. He casually took out a long whip. 10 over black-robed men suddenly regained their senses as their eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in shock. What was going on? Wasn't this little girl swallowed by the poisonous snake? Why did it become like this now? The 10 over black-robed men recalled the burst of profound energy which was released from Yiqing Luo earlier. Instantly, there was a wave of fear in their hearts. But Yiqing Luo's face was filled with fear as her pink lips rose slightly, like a poppy, blooming with a suffocating charm. Now, it's my turn to fulfill your wishes. 10 over black-robed men's pupils contracted. Thinking of the clamor earlier when they were certain that Yiqing Luo didn't dare to kill anyone. Looking at the current Yiqing Luo who was filled with murderous intent, her eyes icy cold. Their spines instantly turned cold. Chapter 2406. Aren't all of you seeking death? Why do you want to be a stray dog now? Yiqing Luo smiled as she gazed at those fleeing figures. Her frosty eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Her fingers moved. The long whip in her hand was like a poisonous snake as it swiftly coiled around them. No one could tell how she made her move. And what did she do? By the time everyone regained their senses, those 10 over black-robed men were trapped in the long whip. They were totally immobilized. The 10 over black-robed men's pupils dilated as they stared at Yiqing Luo in horror. They couldn't react at all. They were so easily trapped by Yiqing Luo without any chance to resist. Moreover, it was just a long whip. Trapping over 10 of them? Don't worry, I won't let you die in the wilderness. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long curly lashes were overflowing with color, shining with an intoxicating luster. The 10 over black-robed men heard that and the fear on their faces grew thicker. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Her fingers tightened as she quickly pulled those 10 over black-robed men in front of her. Yiqing Luo's face was still that innocent and sweet smile. However, his eyes were calm without a single ripple. Ah! A series of miserable shrieks resounded in the air above the forest. Very quickly it returned to peace. Yiqing Luo casually threw the long whip in her hand. Kitty! Yiqing Luo called out softly. Kitty Li hopped forward and held Yiqing Luo's arm. Hang these corpses at the main entrance of the Battle King's residence. The more obvious the better, the more sensational the better. Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm, as though she was talking about a very ordinary topic. Originally, Yiqing Luo had no intention to kill these black-robed men. But, if they didn't offend her, she naturally wouldn't offend them. These black-robed men wanted her life. Then they shouldn't blame her for being merciless and taking their lives. General Battle King. She would slowly settle it with him bit by bit. This scene was witnessed by Gu Jingyu. His gaze was deep and gentle as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking, as though he wanted to see through her body and see her soul. It was so deep, so sincere. Gu Jingyu couldn't deny it. He had already been completely bewitched by this girl who could barely be considered delicate and pretty. Obviously, most of the women he had seen were many times more beautiful than her. But this seemingly elegant young girl, however, it had a unique charm. He looked at the lifeless corpses that fell to the ground one by one. He then looked at the young girl who was standing beside the corpse and talking to the cute little girl calmly. His heart inexplicably tightened. It was as if some kind of emotion was gradually spreading. The girl in his eyes. Her clothes were simple but elegant. Her looks were barely elegant and pleasing to the eye. However, it was evil like a blooming poppy flower. He continued to exude a suffocating charm. It captivated and moved one's soul. It was until Yiqing Luo finished instructing Kitty Li and walked towards Gu Jingyu. Only then did Gu Jingyu manage to regain his senses. Ah, what did you just say? Gu Jingyu looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced at the ground full of corpses. Don't tell me you were frightened by these corpses? Chapter 2407. This looked like a pure and innocent young master. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. What's there to be surprised about? Surprised that I will kill people? It seemed that those black-robed men also thought that she didn't dare to kill them. She looked like a young lady who had no strength to truss a chicken. Gu Jingyu's blush turned even redder as though his inner thoughts were exposed. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's expression as she smiled faintly. She raised her head and looked at the azure sky through the dense trees. She smiled faintly. In this place where the strong are revered, where human lives are treated as grass, the only way to survive is to go out and block the enemy in front of you. Gu Jingyu was stunned as he looked at her in astonishment. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. I'm not a saint, I'm a human and I will be selfish and I don't want to die. Since I don't want to die, then in order to survive, my enemy can only die. So, killing people to me is very normal. No matter if it was her past life or this life. Killing people to her was as normal as eating a meal. She respected every life. And also respected every choice. If it wasn't for the fact that they offended her. If it wasn't for the fact that they wanted her life. She wouldn't bother about it. But if the other party chose to be her enemy and wanted her life. Or it might affect the future of the people around her. She would not hesitate to take action. She couldn't do it to sacrifice her life for unimportant people. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Gu Jingyu was stunned momentarily. After some time, the gaze he used to look at Yiqing Luo was filled with some heartache and connection. A light voice with some illusory emptiness. You must have suffered a lot. For a young lady to say such words. He must have experienced a reign of terror and walked out of it. Otherwise, how was it possible for her to be so indifferent? Like just now. She killed 10 over black-robed men with her bare hands. There wasn't any change in her expression. It really seemed like something that couldn't be more normal. Yiqing Luo met his heartache gaze and couldn't help but laughed out. Young Master Gu's words make me seem to be very pitiful. As for me, I've never felt that my past life was bad for me. She chuckled, her eyes indifferent. It's because of my past that I've developed a strong heart. It's also why I can survive in this place. When Gu Jingyu heard that, he looked at Yiqing Luo's elegant face and finally smiled warmly. Young miss is so open-minded, I've learnt a lot. Yiqing Luo waved her hand and took a look at Kitty Li who was carrying Shiju and waiting for them to leave as she brought up a topic. Right, Mr. Gu, why are you here? This place was half an hour's journey away from Qinghua City. She had purposely come here to lure the black-robed men. That Gu Jingyu, he mentioned the purpose of his visit. Gu Jingyu's expression suddenly froze. Oh no, I forgot all about it. I did it to save the Bu family village. Bu village? Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's solemn expression. I'll follow you to take a look. Gu Jingyu hesitated for a moment. It will be dangerous. No worries. Yiqing Luo shook her head and smiled faintly. You're clear about my ability, so don't worry about me. That's not something that can be solved with profound energy. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips. He pondered for some time before he decided, all right. Then remember to follow me closely. No matter what you see, don't be rash and act on your own. Chapter 2408. She followed Gu Jingyu to the Bu family village. There were two reasons. Firstly, she had to send Gu Jingyu away. Kitty Li and Shiju, who had reverted to its original form, moved those 10 over corpses. Earlier the glower flame fan had been seen by Gu Jingyu. If there was another Shiju's original form, even an idiot would know her real identity. Secondly, Bu, this surname. Previously, when she and Yu Wenquang had their first conflict, it was Miao Yi's grandma Bu who helped her. Later on, she almost suffered from the revenge of the Battle King's residents. This grandma Bu and the Bu family village, surely there wasn't any connection? Yiqing Luo decided to take a look for herself. The Bu family village was not far from this forest. As long as they passed through this forest and walked for another 10 over kilometers, they would be able to see the Bu family village's sign. It was no wonder that Gu Jingyu would so coincidentally enter this forest. The two of them walked into the Bu family village one after another. This village looked extremely dilapidated and poor. As far as the eye could see, there were a few thatched huts. The slightly better ones were the wooden huts. There were about 10 over houses. The entire village probably wasn't as big as her garden in the old mansion. Moreover, the people in this village were mostly old people who were over 50 years old. Seeing some outsiders coming over, those old people all set their gazes on them curiously. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. She didn't sense anything strange. Luckily, we arrived in time. Seeing the peace in the village, Gu Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked sideways at the young lady beside him and his tone was obviously much more relaxed. Sorry for making you worried. We arrived in time. This village. Is something going to happen? Yiqing Luo asked in puzzlement. Gu Jingyu only smiled. The two of them walked all the way to the end of the village. Only then did they stop. Tired? Gu Jingyu looked at Yiqing Luo gently. Yiqing Luo nodded. Gu Jingyu then started walking towards a wooden hut at the end of the village. This was a shed made of wood and there were a few wooden tables and chairs. An old man was boiling water in front of the stove. Old grandpa, can I have some water? Gu Jingyu asked gently and elegantly. The old man raised his head. It took a long time for his muddy eyes to see Gu Jingyu's face. He quickly revealed a kind smile and said, "Young man, sit down. The tea will be ready soon." Gu Jingyu expressed his thanks and turned his head towards Yiqing Luo. "Sit down and wait for a while." Yiqing Luo didn't know what he was up to. She followed him to a nearby wooden table and sat down. Soon the old man brought out the tea that he had brewed. Gu Jingyu sent a cup of tea to Yiqing Luo's table. "Drink some tea first and take a rest." Yiqing Luo received the tea and politely thanked him. The cup was rough. However, the fragrance of the tea that wafted out was extremely rich and pleasant. The mist clouded her eyes. She took a sip of her tea. It was extremely mellow and the fragrance lingered in the mouth. She couldn't help but praise, "Good tea." When the old man heard this, he chuckled and said, "It's good that you like it. Our village isn't good at other things, but our tea leaves are especially fragrant." The old man was very hospitable. Intentionally or unintentionally, Gu Jingyu wanted to find out the situation of the Bu family village from the old man's mouth. Very quickly they started chatting. Yiqing Luo drank her tea and Gu Jingyu would refill her tea from time to time. Chapter 2409. Young couple? Pray for children? What a big misunderstanding. This was a big misunderstanding. Yiqing Luo quickly put down the teacup and explained seriously, "Old grandpa, you've misunderstood. He and I are just ordinary friends, not. Young couple are still so shy. I'm experienced. I understand. I understand." The old man nodded with an "I understand" expression and smiled ambiguously. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry but no tears came out. This misunderstanding had to be explained clearly. She was a married woman. "Master Gu, you have to explain to old grandpa, a woman's reputation is very important." Yiqing Luo decisively asked Gu Jingyu for help. While Gu Jingyu was in a daze, the old man's words, "young couple," echoed in his ears. In his heart, there was an inexplicable feeling of satisfaction. Young couple was not bad. If he could become husband and wife with such a woman, he could let go and fight for his own ambition. Hearing Yiqing Luo's cry for help, Gu Jingyu suddenly regained his senses and his gentle gaze met her eyes. "It's hard to change the old man's mind. Explaining will only make things worse. You don't have to worry about it." Yiqing Luo expressed that she cared. But it was indeed as Gu Jingyu said. The more she explained, the more excited the old man was that she and Gu Jingyu were a young couple. She was thinking of ways to convince the old man that she had nothing to do with Gu Jingyu. But she heard Gu Jingyu casually asked while drinking his tea, "I heard that this month no one went to the sacred spring to pray for children. Is it because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore?" The old man's smile suddenly froze. A trace of pain flashed past his muddy old eyes. Gu Jingyu immediately put down the teacup and apologized guiltily. "Sorry, old grandpa, if I asked something inconvenient, just pretend I didn't say it. It's not inconvenient." The old man sighed heavily. "You will know sooner or later." He paused and put down the tray in his hand. "This month, there are indeed no young couples going to the sacred spring. Not because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore, but the Bu family village is not peaceful. To go to the sacred spring you must pass through the Bu family village. But recently, there will always be a group of people who will come to the Bu family village to make trouble, plunder the resources of the village, and from time to time, they will kill the travelers or villagers who pass through the village." At this point the old man's voice was choking. "Who is it? Plunder resources?" Yi Qing Luo suddenly put down the teacup. The Bu family village was inhabited by some old people. Other than tea leaves, what other resources could there be? He couldn't even feed himself anymore. And it had to be plundered by others? "I don't know either. Those people are here to look for someone." They were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. "If you don't hand over that person, then we'll come again. We'll rob and kill until everyone in the Bu family village is dead." The old man closed his eyes. During this period of time, those people have come more frequently. 2 young couples have already died under the blades of those people, so those young couples don't dare to go to the holy spring to pray for children anymore? Looking for someone? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu shook his head. "After you two have finished your tea, immediately rush to the holy spring. Leave the village before those people come, then you won't have to worry about your lives." The old man put away his sorrowful emotions and revealed a kind smile. He chuckled and said, "You two are here to happily pray for a child. Don't listen to this old man's nonsense and let it affect your mood." The old man's smile seemed to sweep away all the haze. Chapter 24:10. "Old Grandpa, since those people frequently come to harass the village, why haven't you left yet?" Yi Qing Luo looked around at those villagers who surrounded them in 2s and 3s. Perhaps this was the first time they had seen visitors. People with outstanding temperament like Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu. These people were all over 50 years old and their clothes were extremely rough. Some were carrying hoes, some were carrying machetes, some were leaning on farming tools. Although they looked like they had been through hardships. But on everyone's faces, they all had a faint smile on their faces. It seemed to be happy that a guest had finally passed by the Bu family village. Yi Qing Luo guessed. They probably thought that batch of people would not come again. So outsiders finally dared to head to the sacred spring to pray for children. Since this Bu family village was so dangerous, they were unable to hand over who those people were looking for. Why not leave this dangerous place directly? Leave? The old man laughed lightly. The young people have all left. Some went to Qinghua City, some went to other big cities. We old fellows. If we leave, in future when those young people want to come back they can't find a home, what should we do? Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened. The expression in Gu Jingyu's eyes became gentler. "All right, you two, hurry to the sacred spring, don't waste any more time." The old man didn't want to say anything more as he picked up the tray, waved his hand and returned to the stove. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu looked at the tea in their cups, speechless. After some time, Gu Jingyu spoke warmly. "The old people in the Bu family village are very kind. This is the reason why I came here." "Do you know who that group of people are?" Yi Qing Luo thought of Gu Jingyu's purpose of coming to the Bu family village. Could it be because of those people who were harassing them? "I'm not sure who they are, so I specially came to confirm." Gu Jingyu shook his head and answered truthfully. "After knowing who those people are, will you help the Bu family village or that group of people?" Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight at Gu Jingyu. "In your heart, what kind of person am I?" Gu Jingyu heard that and a trace of sadness flashed past his gentle eyes. Yi Qing Luo lowered her head silently. What kind of person was Gu Jingyu? She wasn't sure. The only thing she knew was that this man was not as kind as he seemed on the surface. Her silence. This caused the sadness in Gu Jingyu's eyes to become even thicker. He sighed and drank the tea in his cup. "If you want me to help the Bu family village, I will help the Bu family village." In that case, right from the start, you weren't here to help the Bu family village. Yi Qing Luo understood the deeper meaning behind his words. However, he did not hear the flirtatious tone in Gu Jingyu's words. Even old man Song, who was within the azure dew bracelet, couldn't help but hold his forehead. Did this girl put all her EQ on Dizun, the boy? She couldn't tell that Gu was flirting with her? Gu Jingyu's mood became increasingly gloomy. He felt somewhat defeated. When had he ever been ignored by a woman like this? Now, it was rare for him to have a woman that he wanted. But this woman was completely uninterested in him. The atmosphere between the two was a little strange. The surrounding villagers watched for a long time. The whispers began. Every time he sees this young couple, he thinks of his son and daughter-in-law. Chapter 24:11. His wife also went to the city to look for their son, but... Sigh. The villagers sighed regretfully. Elder T is too stubborn, staying in the Bu family village. Not only is his life in danger, he is also living in waiting every day. Why not go directly to the city? Qinghua City is not far from here. Actually, it's better to go and see how his wife and son are doing in the city. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly when she heard those words. She got up and looked at those villagers. Grandpa's, you said? Elder T's son is in Qinghua City? The villagers were stunned. They looked at Yiqing Luo in panic. You. How did you hear us? They were whispering to each other and their voices were clearly very soft. If it were ordinary people, those they were discussing. Ordinary people indeed couldn't hear them clearly. But Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu were cultivators. And their cultivation was rather high. The villagers' words were naturally heard clearly. We came from Qinghua City. Yiqing Luo didn't answer the villagers' question but said directly, if it's possible, we can help Elder T to look for his wife and son. The villagers looked at each other and stared at each other in bewilderment. No one spoke. The old man noticed the commotion over here and waved a huge cattail leaf fan at those villagers. What are you gossiping about again? Go away, don't disturb the guests drinking their tea. Those villagers shook their heads helplessly but still left the tea house. The old man smiled and waved the cattail leaf fan at Yiqing Luo. Young lady, don't listen to their nonsense. Finish your tea and go to the sacred spring with your husband. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. She wasn't a kind person. But she was a person with a heart. Losing news of her loved ones. And those robbers time and time again harassed the Bu family village, killing the villagers cruelly. But he couldn't leave. Afraid that if he left, his loved ones would return and couldn't find him. The old grandpa's heart was actually more uncomfortable than anyone else. But he still had to consider their feelings, smiling benevolently. Elder T was really a very gentle old grandpa. So gentle that it made the usually emotionless her. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. Old grandpa, it's going to be the Qinghua sect leader's 50th birthday soon. The citizens of Qinghua City have to stand on the streets to celebrate the sect leader's birthday. If you're looking for your son and wife, why don't you show us their portraits? We'll go back to Qinghua City and help you look for them. Yiqing Luo did not force Elder T to leave with her. However, since he already knew about this matter, if it was convenient for her to help, this matter could not be left unattended. The smile on Elder T's face froze. He seemed to be hesitating. To be more precise, he was afraid. What was there to be afraid of? He was afraid that his wife and son had not returned yet. What if fear is bad news? Or was he afraid that his son and wife would live in the city and not want an old man like him? No matter which one it was. Even old-time T was afraid to find out. He would rather hold on to this hope and silently guard it. Yiqing Luo didn't urge or force Elder T, only waiting for him to make his own choice. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Elder T finally heaved a heavy sigh. Forget it, there's no use guarding this false hope. I want to know what's their situation now. As long as they're safe no matter what, I'll be at ease. Saying that, Elder T walked into the small wooden house with heavy footsteps. Chapter 24:12. The old man's gaze stared at the wooden box in his hand, filled with longing and longing. He walked in front of Yiqing Luo, placing the wooden box on the wooden table. That wooden box looked exquisite and extremely clean. She could tell that the old man often flipped through this wooden box. The things in the wooden box. It was also the obsession that supported him till now. The old man's wrinkled hands trembled as he opened the wooden box. In the wooden box there were a few small things. And there were 2 paintings. The old man picked up one of the paintings. His fingertips were trembling slightly. Yiqing Luo didn't rush him, nor did she disturb him. After some time the old man slowly placed the painting on the table. This is the only painting this old woman has. Before she went to the city to look for her son, a young couple who passed by drew the only painting for her. The old man's voice sounded choked. The yellowed painting slowly opened up. Suddenly there was a commotion outside the village. Those villagers who were called away by the old man earlier all ran back. Elder T. Quickly keep the things, those people are here again. The old man's hand which was opening the painting paused. The expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He abruptly kept the painting into the wooden box. Run, run, run. Why are you running? Haven't you learned to be obedient? A rough voice was heard from afar. A group of people, about 40 to 50 people, majestically walked into the Bu family village. The few men who were walking in front were dressed in strange black clothing, short top, tight long pants, with a black belt embroidered with strange patterns on their waists, directly lifted their feet, and kicked those villagers who ran over. These villagers were all ordinary people and they were all old. After being kicked, they immediately fell onto the ground, screaming in pain and were unable to move. Those men laughed loudly all the way to the tea house. Young people, you find a chance to run. These people are not good people. Elder T looked at those people as his face sunk as he suppressed his voice. These people? Were they the ones who robbed the Bu family village of resources and indiscriminately killed innocent people? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she took in these 40 to 50 people in a panoramic view. These people's clothing was strange but extremely familiar. If she didn't remember wrongly, his attire was similar to that of the Miao tribe's patriarch that she had seen in the Battle King's mansion. However, the Miao tribe leader's clothes were obviously more luxurious. In other words, these people were from the Miao tribe. Why did the Miao people want to harass the Bu family village? And to use such cruel methods? Who was the person they were looking for? Run? Where do you think you're going? Elder T, under my nose, who do you think you can let escape? The Miao people parted to form a path. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out. Yi Qing Luo could tell from that man's clothing and patterns. This person was among this group of Miao people. His status was the highest. If he didn't guess wrong, this person should be one of the elders of the Miao tribe. Sure enough, in the next moment, Elder T suppressed his anger and said, "Third Elder Miao, you just want to find someone in the Bu family village. This young couple is just passing by the Bu family village. They want to go to the holy spring to pray for a child. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" Third Elder Miao laughed loudly. He walked directly to the tea house and very naturally sat down at the table next to Yi Qing Luo. He swept a disdainful glance at Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu, and his gaze paused slightly on Gu Jingyu. But very quickly he arrogantly turned his head around. Star. Chapter 24:13. Tisk tisk, Elder T, you can't even protect yourself and you still want to protect these two youngsters? Third Elder Miao laughed mockingly. Elder T's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. It's not a matter of protecting them, they're just innocent passers-by. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh out loud. The surrounding attendants all laughed in agreement. For a moment, the originally quiet Bu family village was filled with ear-piercing laughter. The atmosphere of the entire village became extremely strange. Since you're so afraid that this elder will hurt innocent passers-by, then this elder will hurt innocent people even more. Third Elder Miao's eyes were hazy as he laughed coldly. His gaze slowly landed on the expressionless young girl. The young girl was extremely calm as she looked at the 40 or so people without a ripple in her eyes. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but frown. He had come to the Bu family village to look for someone. He wanted to see the useless people of the Bu family village kneel and beg for mercy, only to be toyed with and applauded by him. This passerby wasn't afraid of them at all? Did he really think that they would only target the Bu family village? Wouldn't they hurt the innocent? His gaze turned cold as he laughed coldly and continued, "You bunch of old farts won't hand over the person that this elder wants. Then, this elder will start with these innocent passers-by." Elder T's entire body trembled in anger. Third Elder Miao, don't you Miao people go too far. Our Bu family village doesn't have the person you're looking for. You want to use this excuse to plunder our resources. How dare you hurt these innocent people? Our Bu family village will fight to the death with you. Third Elder Miao looked like he had heard a joke as he looked at the clansmen around him and burst into laughter again. Fight to the death? You bunch of old and weak trash? The Miao people said disdainfully. As he spoke, he kicked the villagers who were unable to move on the ground a few more times. Come. Get up and fight to the death with us. A bunch of old farts. There were also a few Miao people who pushed the trembling villagers to the ground. It was obvious that this was the norm in the Bu family village. You are a bunch of animals. Elder T clenched his fists and pressed his palms on the table, trembling. Third Elder Miao looked at Elder T disdainfully with his sinister eyes. His eyes suddenly fell on the delicate wooden box under Elder T's palm. The Miao people beside him had sharp eyes and walked over. Hey Elder T, what other treasures are you hiding? As he spoke, the Miao man snatched the wooden box from Elder T's hand. It was so fast that old-time T couldn't react at all. Elder T's expression changed drastically. He immediately rushed forward and snatched it back. Give it back. I can give you anything you want. No one is allowed to touch this thing. Elder T's attitude piqued Third Elder Miao's interest. He spread his hands. The Miao lackey immediately handed the wooden box to Third Elder Miao. The other Miao tribesman easily stopped Elder T. A Miao tribesman pushed hard. Old-time T's body stumbled and fell backward. Behind Elder T was Yi Qing Luo's wooden table. The position where he fell was coincidentally going to hit the corner of the wooden table. To the old man it would cause a fatal injury. Just as Elder T fell, Yi Qing Luo's body had already stood up quickly and caught hold of Elder T. Chapter 24:14. Elder T had no time to express his gratitude. He had just steadied himself when he dashed towards Third Elder Miao's direction in tears. Bastard! Don't touch it. Bastard! Return the box to me. Old Grandpa. Yi Qing Luo held onto Elder T. Elder T was an ordinary person. If he insisted on charging forward, he would be sending himself to his death. Yi Qing Luo naturally couldn't watch Elder T send himself to his death. Elder T stared at the wooden box in Third Elder Miao's hands as he bellowed furiously, "Let me go! I'm going to fight with that bastard. I'm going to fight with him." Yi Qing Luo held onto him tightly. Very quickly she pulled Elder T behind her back. Elder T wailed as he struggled with all his might, trying to charge towards Third Elder Miao. The more Elder T did so, Third Elder Miao became more and more interested in the contents of the wooden box. He seemed to be intentionally provoking Elder T. Holding onto the wooden box, he shook it roughly from left to right. He sneered in disdain. "What's in it? It's just a low-quality wooden box. How can it be so precious?" He casually tossed it in his hands. That action agitated Elder T once again. The surrounding villagers had long been harassed by the Miao tribesmen time and time again and were already annoyed beyond endurance. They were afraid of the Miao people's cruelty and brutality. But at this very moment, looking at Elder T's most precious wooden box, which he usually hugged in his arms like a treasure, the wooden box that no one in the village was allowed to touch, being trampled by Third Elder Miao, the rage that surged up in his heart. The so-called fear had long been replaced by it. It was just death anyway. Being tortured, robbed and trampled on by the Miao people. Being hung up and beaten every single day. Compared to death, how was this any better? Fight with this bunch of bastards. Don't let them rob and humiliate us anymore. Even if we die, we must drag this bunch of bastards down with us. The surrounding villagers suddenly burst into a tragic roar of anger. Their faces were filled with an expression of facing death with equanimity. All of them raised their hoes, farming tools etc. as they charged towards the Miao people. The Miao people totally didn't expect that this bunch of old and weak trash would suddenly go berserk. For a moment they couldn't react in time. A group of villagers pounced on him and smashed his head. The 41 Miao people, at least a dozen of them, were pressed on the ground by a group of villagers, venting their anger. For such a long time, they were all suppressing their anger. At this moment all of his anger was burning. They were burning with all their might. Elder T looked at the chaotic scene. He shook off Yi Qing Luo, who refused to let go of him. "Young lady, immediately leave this place with your husband amid the chaos. These people are deranged and will not let any innocent people go." As he was saying that, he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu exchanged glances. At this critical juncture, how could they possibly leave? If they left the Bu family village now, the Miao would definitely slaughter the entire Bu village. Seeing that the two of them were still standing in their original positions, Zhang Xian nodded. Elder T struggled even harder. "Little girl, let go of me. Let's go. Let's go. Don't tell me you really want to die here with us bunch of old fellows. Old Grandpa, if you believe me, I guarantee that no one in the Bu family village will be missing." Yi Qing Luo used her other hand and gently patted the wrinkled back of Elder T's hand. The young lady's resolute tone, as though it carried boundless energy. Elder T was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. Chapter 24:15. Just at this moment, after a short period of chaos, the Miao tribesmen had already regained their senses. Third Elder Miao stood up abruptly, holding the wooden box as he pointed towards those maddened old villagers. Quick! Beat them to death. Kill this bunch of idiots who have eaten the hearts of bears and leopards' guts. The other Miao tribesmen who had not been beaten up by the villagers immediately pounced forward. The villagers were after all ordinary people. Venting their anger was not able to turn them into Super Saiyan in an instant, to explode out their battle potential. But moments later they were restrained by that bunch of Miao tribesmen. Beat them up viciously. Third Elder Miao pointed at those villagers who had injuries on their faces, but were still stubborn and unyielding. He held the wooden box tightly in his hands. He was so infuriated that his expression was extremely gloomy. That was a handmade wooden box. Under his extreme strength it gave off a cracking sound. Elder T looked at the scene in front of him as tears filled his entire old face. He pushed Yiqing Luo with force. "Young lady, that is the only remembrance left to me by my wife and son. Let me go over. Let me go over." Yiqing Luo still didn't let go. Her charming eyes slowly swept past those villagers who had been suppressed by the Miao tribesmen till they had no way to resist. The Miao tribesmen heard Third Elder Miao's command. Thinking of the predicament of being beaten up by this bunch of old, weak and disabled trash, they immediately raised their hands as they directly punched towards those villagers. They used all their strength. These ordinary old villagers totally could not take a few punches from them. The Miao tribesmen also used all their strength, totally wanting to take the lives of those villagers. "Stop!" Suddenly, a chilly voice rang as ethereal and melodious to the ears. That voice was very soft and gentle, but it brought along an indescribable deterrent force. Immediately the entire village seemed to have pressed the freeze button. Frozen on the spot, a red figure slowly walked out. Everyone's gazes turned over one by one. He saw a petite figure standing before the third elder of the Miao clan. He was only 2 steps away from Third Elder Miao. The young lady's looks were elegant. Between her brows, there was a trace of absolute chilliness. The blazing red dress swayed even though there was no wind. It made her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens. His heart could not help but tremble. Third Elder Miao was the first to regain his senses. Frowning, he stared at the young girl in front of him and threatened in a low voice, "Little girl, are you ordering us?" Yiqing Luo's eyes were calm as she met Third Elder Miao's warning gaze. She narrowed her eyes. "No, I'm warning you." "Warning?" Third Elder Miao repeated his words and laughed maniacally. "Little girl, do you know who we are? Even if you want to show off, you have to look at the occasion." Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes slightly fluttered. The innocence and pureness of the young girl were fully displayed. "Are you people? I thought you were just a bunch of beasts." She paused and covered her mouth. "Tui tui tui, I said it wrong," after being scolded by Yiqing Luo. The Miao people's faces turned extremely ugly. But he saw Yiqing Luo covering her mouth in a mischievous and adorable manner, as though she had said something wrong. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Little girl still knows fear, that means there's nothing wrong with your brain. Saying your beast is already praising you." Yiqing Luo added another sentence. Her long and narrow eyes curved, showing her pureness. Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned black. Chapter 24:16. Put it down. Just as Third Elder Miao was about to smash it down, the young lady calmly spat out 2 words. Her calm and indifferent voice. It revealed an unshakable charisma. Even Third Elder Miao, who was used to killing, seemed to have lost all his energy when he heard these 2 words. Third Elder Miao's expression changed slightly as anger surged in his eyes. How could he be frightened by a young lady? "Young lady, how dare you put on an act?" Third Elder Miao suppressed the fear in his heart as his sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. But the next moment, after meeting Yiqing Luo's eyes, that pair of eyes, what kind of eyes? That gaze was like a poisonous snake. It coiled around him tightly, making him unable to breathe. Obviously, her pupils were like glass, crystal clear. Obviously, her eyes were long and narrow, with an evil charm. That kind of enchanting charm. That kind of beauty that could topple a city. But it was filled with an austere and cold chill. Just a glance. But it made one feel. The feeling of falling into an ice cellar. Third Elder Miao's body froze on the spot. That hand which was raised up high suddenly loosened. The wooden box fell from his hand. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and caught that wooden box. But because of third elder Miao's anger, the wooden box which he held tightly had long lost its original firmness. The moment the wooden box fell into Yiqing Luo's hands, it had already broken into pieces. The things in the wooden box all fell onto the ground. Old woman. Elder T pounced forward, using his own body to block the things that fell out of the wooden box. He swiftly picked up the things as he softly apologized to the things that fell onto the ground. As though he was apologizing to his own wife. Elder T speedily picked up the things. The surrounding no Miao people dared to step forward to stop him. Because Yiqing Luo was standing beside Elder T. Her entire body was emitting a horrifying pressure. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids, looking at Elder T wrapping those things which were more important than his life into his clothes. The things were all picked up. She slowly bent down as she was about to help Elder T up. Elder T was anxious and agitated to regain these important things. His fingers kept trembling. With Yiqing Luo's support, Elder T stood up. In his hand, he was still carefully rolling up the scroll that had fallen on the ground. His fingers trembled. The entire scroll was unfurled. The portrait in the scroll reflected into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Elder T immediately squatted down and held the scroll in his arms as if it was a treasure. Yiqing Luo held Old Time T's wrist tightly. "Grandpa, wait." Elder T felt like he was in a dream. Now he was very clear. This young couple. They were all extraordinary people. Perhaps, these two would be the salvation of the Bu family village. "Let me have a look at the picture scroll," Yiqing Luo asked gently. Old Time T was stunned. He looked at the scroll in his arms and then looked at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he slowly loosened his grip and unfurled the scroll. In the painting there was an old woman wearing coarse clothes. His smile was extremely kind and gentle. He could tell. This was also a very gentle person. Yiqing Luo knew the person in the painting. She had just met the person in the painting not long ago. Wasn't it the first day she came to the northern continent, when she had a conflict with Yuan Kuang? The Granny Bu who wholeheartedly wanted to sacrifice herself to save her? She had not expected. Chapter 24:17. Little girl, you know the person in the portrait? Looking at Yiqing Luo's expression, Elder T's heart suddenly jumped and he asked nervously. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Thinking about what Miao Yi had said about Grandma Chi's grandson, she was silent for a while, then nodded. "When I first arrived in Joyful Heart City, Grandma Bu helped me a little, so we can be considered acquaintances." Elder T's eyes widened. His turbid old eyes were gradually covered by a layer of mist. Tears along his wrinkled face slid down bit by bit. He grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm agitatedly. "You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? The old woman, she's still alive, still alive." Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, "You saw the old woman? You saw her, didn't you?" Looking at Elder T's tearful face, Yiqing Luo's heart softened a little. No matter what the reason was, Grandma Bu didn't return to the Bu family village. He didn't see Elder T again. For Old Time T, none of this was important. The important thing was, Granny Bu was still alive. His wife was still alive. This was the best answer she could give him. "After everything is settled, follow us to Qinghua City to meet Grandma Bu." Yiqing Luo held Elder T's hand tightly and patted it lightly. "She must want to see you very much." Elder T choked with sobs and couldn't speak. He wiped the tears off his face and nodded. Yiqing Luo and Elder T had no one in their eyes as they chatted idly. The surrounding Miao tribesmen felt as if they had been disgraced. Especially third Elder Miao. His face was as black as charcoal. You bunch of old and weak trash. How dare you be so bold?" Third Elder Miao gritted his teeth and roared, "Little girl, do you want to meddle in other people's business? Today this elder will make an example of you first." As the third elder of the Miao tribe, in front of the Miao tribesmen, he was repeatedly frightened by a young girl who looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, and he did not even dare to resist. If the news spread to the Miao Stockade village, what face would he have left to face the Miao tribesmen? It was very likely that his position as the third elder would not be stable. He had to get back at them. He had to teach this bitch a lesson. Third Elder Miao's eyes revealed a vicious glint as the attack in his hands had already turned into a biting cold murderous intent, pouncing towards Yiqing Luo. A terrifying aura. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Bu family village. "Grandpa, take the villagers and hide well. With me around, no one will be in danger." Yiqing Luo pushed Elder T towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Then he leaped up and flew towards the profound energy released by Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's attack. She could not avoid him. Once she avoids it, Third Elder Miao's attack would fall on the innocent villagers behind her. And these villagers were just ordinary people. The aftershock of Third Elder Miao's attack would also injure the villagers. The only thing she could do. It was to force Third Elder Miao's attack back. Furthermore, suppress Third Elder Miao. Gu Jingyu supported Elder T. He frowned slightly and raised his head to look at the girl who was leaving a trail of sunset in the sky. His heart was beating faster and faster. Why, he was clearly beside her. But she wasn't willing to rely on him? Why must she choose to risk her life to save the Bu family village's villagers? She obviously knew. He would rush over to the Bu family village. To save the villagers. But she didn't say anything to him. This kind of woman. Chapter 24:18. Third Elder Miao and Yiqing Luo exchanged over 10 moves. Third Elder Miao realized the disparity between his and Yiqing Luo's abilities. His expression became even more solemn. He was overwhelmed with shock. He couldn't believe that this young lady who looked so weak that she could be easily strangled actually possessed such powerful strength. Even he wasn't her match. Since when was there such an incredible young lady in the North Continent? But moments later, Third Elder Miao was covered in injuries as he was flung out in an extremely pathetic state. Third Elder Miao finally stabilized his footing. His entire body was covered in injuries as it affected his muscles. It was so painful that he grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but curse at this wretched hussy's insidiousness. Yiqing Luo's injuries on Third Elder Miao didn't even use her profound energy to hurt his internal organs. But she kept on giving Third Elder Miao one injury after another. Moreover, the injuries on every part of his body were all places that could easily be affected, and the pain would be extreme. At this moment, Third Elder Miao was in an extremely sorry state. You bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and help me. Third Elder Miao bellowed angrily at the surrounding Miao people. Those 40 to 50 Miao people were probably shocked by Yiqing Luo's ferocious battle power. But no one stepped forward. Third Elder Miao was so angry that he stomped his feet. But no matter how he scolded or howled, those Miao people stood on the spot as they stared at him with wide eyes. No matter how badly he was tortured by Yiqing Luo, he was in an extremely pathetic state. Whereas on the other side, under Gu Jingyu's protection, Elder T had gathered all the Bu family villagers at a corner of the tea house. Elder T hugged the things in his arms tightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Young master, you go help your wife, will be fine. Gu Jingyu placed one hand behind his back as he looked at Yiqing Luo's direction with a complicated gaze. He looked at the villagers who were hiding behind him as they trembled in fear but were worried about the situation anxiously. Eventually he shook his head. She can handle it alone, I'll protect you. If she leaves you, the Miao people might take the opportunity to kidnap you to threaten her. When the villagers heard that, they couldn't persuade further. Indeed, if there was no one to protect them, they would be easily captured by the Miao people. By then, it would implicate that young lady instead. Soon the battle ended. Third Elder Miao lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in blood. He no longer had the strength to move. His body was still twitching and trembling. Yiqing Luo casually swung the long whip in her hand. The whip cut through the air, making a hua-hua sound. It was also mixed with a wave of air that kept rolling. Third Elder Miao trembled even more violently when he saw this. He cowered in fear. Where was the slightest bit of his usual high-spirited demeanor? Just earlier he was whipped by Yiqing Luo till his entire body was covered with injuries. Moreover, the sharp pain on his body did not numb him at all. Instead, it became more and more painful. He screamed in pain. Even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. A shadow had already formed in his heart. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly, as her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. She bent down and looked down at the man who was trembling with fear. What? Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why was he curled up on the ground? How are you going to lecture me like this? His words caused Third Elder Miao's face to turn red with shame. But Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see his shame. Chapter 24:19. You. How dare you? The more Yiqing Luo said she didn't want his life, the more afraid Third Elder Miao was. His eyes widened and his hoarse voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. You dare to kill me? I'm an elder of Miao Miao. I'm an elder of Miao Miao Miao. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled fearlessly. Very soon you won't be. Perhaps this sentence had infuriated third elder Miao. His body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist violently. Slut. This elder wants you dead. Want you? He was roaring. His voice was almost hoarse. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo saw clearly that third elder Miao's pupils suddenly widened. Numerous black things started to spread out from third elder Miao's right eye. The white of his eye slowly turned black. It blended together with the color of his pupils. Third elder Miao's right eye was pitch black, like a bottomless black hole. It was extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she stared at third elder Miao's right eye. She wasn't sure what was going on with third elder Miao's eye. Behind her, Gu Jingyu's panicked voice was heard. Miss Yi, be careful. The next moment, her wrist was tightened. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone. Her face crashed into a solid chest. Gu Jingyu, what are you doing? The unfamiliar man's presence wrapped around her body. Yiqing Luo couldn't tolerate any man other than Ah Xian touching her. She felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. She struggled. Gu Jingyu hugged her even tighter. Bam! The man's suppressed groan was heard beside her ear. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pushed Gu Jingyu away and looked up at him. Gu Jingyu's face was pale as a trace of blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He met Yiqing Luo's gaze. He immediately raised his hand and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his lips as he took a deep breath and stabilized himself. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo grabbed Gu Jingyu's arm. The cold touch made her frown even tighter. Nothing. Gu Jingyu's lips twitched as he shook his head indifferently. You don't need to bother about me, I'll leave these people to you. Yiqing Luo didn't let go of his wrist. Tell me the truth. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips, turned his head, and did not speak. Clearly he wasn't going to tell the truth. What a lovely couple. Third elder Miao panted heavily, but he could not stop laughing. Yiqing Luo pulled Gu Jingyu away and looked at third elder Miao. Third elder Miao's eyes had already returned to normal. She frowned as she recalled third elder Miao's black eyes. She then recalled the scene of Gu Jingyu hugging her tightly, his back facing third elder Miao, and the scene of him getting injured. Could it be, your little lover has been poisoned by my special goo poison? As long as I'm injured, he'll be injured too. Third elder Miao clutched his chest and laughed. Little girl, didn't you want to kill me? Kill me, and this little lover of yours will die with me. Sure enough, it was goo poison. Yiqing Luo's expression sunk as she glanced sideways at Gu Jingyu. As expected, as third elder Miao laughed heartily. Gu Jingyu's face grew paler. He couldn't even stand stably. Yiqing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand to support him as she turned her head to look at third elder Miao. Remove the goo immediately. Chapter 24:20. Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched as an eerie glint appeared in her eyes. Are you threatening me? Third elder Miao could tell that Yiqing Luo cared a lot about her little lover. He had a way to control Yiqing Luo. Third elder Miao naturally had nothing to fear. Yes, this elder is threatening you. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Her long and narrow eyes outlined a curved arc. It looked extremely demonic and extremely alluring. But her eyes were sparkling with a faint glow. But it was filled with chilliness. It was like the cold wind in December, gathering at the bottom of her eyes. Such an oppressive pressure, even third elder Miao's heart couldn't help but tremble. He suppressed the surging fear in his heart, forcing himself to look as though he was in control of the entire situation, forcing himself not to lower Yiqing Luo's imposing manner. Young lady, if you still want your little lover to live, then obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistake. Kill these old fellows in the Bu family village in front of me. Third elder Miao raised his head complacently as he arrogantly gave out his orders. His gaze towards Yiqing Luo became colder and colder. Third elder Miao only felt carefree. He became even more complacent. Young lady, don't you like to meddle in other people's business? Now I will let you meddle in this matter. How about it? Young lady, what will you choose? Will you save your beloved little lover or save these old fellows who have nothing to do with you? Third elder Miao's gaze swept past those 50-over-old villagers who were gathered at the corner of the tea stall. The villagers were frightened by his gaze, and heard the contents of his words. Their faces were filled with shock and terror. These Miao people were simply too cruel. They actually thought of such a method to torture people's hearts. They were not human at all. The villagers were filled with anger. But no one dared to really vent out their anger. The courage to work together and counterattack in a rampage. They had long been exhausted. At this moment, Elder T hugged the thing in his arms tightly as his steps trembled as he walked out. Young lady, you just promise him to kill us and let him cure your husband's poison. Elder T. The villagers behind him were stunned and hurriedly called out to Elder T. Elder T slowly turned around. Facing the villagers. There were still traces of tears on his face. His tear-stained eyes swept across the villagers who had accompanied him for most of his life. Choking with sobs, he said, "This couple was just an innocent passerby. It was our carelessness that got them involved. All this while, we have been enduring the Miao people's plunder and brutal killings. Time and time again he had to endure and suffer again and again. But it did not change the Miao people's conscience. Instead, it encouraged the Miao people's brutality and cruelty. All of this is our fault. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Now, this pair of innocent passers-by, because they helped us, caused them to be poisoned by the Miao tribe. How can we sit back and do nothing? How can we watch innocent passers-by be tortured by the goo poison because of our lives? The Miao people had no heart. Don't tell me we don't have any? If this young man really died because of the goo poison, even if we survived, can we really escape from the blame of our conscience?" One question after another silenced the villagers. They could not refute. Chapter 24-21. This place is our Boo family's turf. This place belongs to all of us. This place cannot allow anyone to trample, to invade. Elder T's voice towards the end was filled with solemnity and determination. He said these words with the heart of meeting his death. Elder T's words landed. He hugged it tightly in his arms as though it was a treasure. Following that, his vision bit by bit swept past all the villagers. This is my personal decision, so even if you don't want to accept, I will not force you. But no need to persuade me, I have already decided. Saying that, Elder T turned around facing Yiqing Luo. Young lady, after I die, pass these things to my old woman. Saying that, Elder T passed the things in his hands to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo stared at Elder T's hand, not moving for a long time. Elder T gave her a benevolent smile. Young lady, it's all right. Do it, I won't blame you, just treat it as giving me a release. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly. Not saying a word, not moving. The atmosphere froze in an instant. When Third Elder Miao saw this, he finally felt like he was in control of his own life. He laughed complacently and arrogantly. Ha! Young lady, look, the Boo family village's villagers are so understanding, they all want to sacrifice themselves to fulfill you two lovers. Why aren't you quickly taking action, fulfill the villagers' sacrifice for you? Third Elder Miao laughed loudly as he looked at those 50 over Miao people who were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all. Now the initiative is already in my hands. What are you all still in a daze for? Quick, go over and help that young lady. After all, she's just a young lass who hasn't even grown her hair. You all have to help her kill people by the side. Although his words sounded as though he wanted someone to help Yiqing Luo, in actual fact he was forcing Yiqing Luo to choose. Forcing Yiqing Luo to kill those villagers. However, after Third Elder Miao finished his words, those Miao people still didn't move. They all looked at Third Elder Miao as though he was a wax statue. Third Elder Miao pointed at the Miao people angrily. Good. Now this elder can't order you around. Good, very good. He vented his anger onto Yiqing Luo. Young lady, this elder doesn't have the patience to waste words with you. This elder will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to think about it. If you still haven't made a choice after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, then this elder will make the choice for you. Hearing this, Elder T became even more anxious. Little girl, just do it. Our Boo family village has implicated you and your husband. Elder T once again raised the thing in his hand towards Yiqing Luo's direction. I've lived for most of my life, my only obsession is to wait for my son, to wait for my old woman to come back. Now that I know that my old woman is still alive, I no longer have any obsession. You don't have to worry about me. At this time a few villagers walked up to her and said, Little girl, Elder T is right. We are already people with half of our bodies in the yellow soil. We will die no matter when we die. This is the territory of our Boo family village. How can we implicate innocent people and sacrifice ourselves for our own lives? Isn't it just death? We're not afraid. Little girl, dying in your hands is better than letting those Miao family village dogs continue to bully us. Chapter 24-22. The villagers were all talking at once. In the end, all the villagers chose to die without any hesitation. They were not willing to implicate the innocent. Looking at these old people in front of her, each and every one of their faces were unafraid of death. Yiqing Luo's heart softened slightly. There were many bad people in this world. But at the same time there were kind people. The villagers in this Bu family village were all very gentle people. They could sacrifice themselves for others. This was a kind of noble sentiment. Yiqing Luo's gaze slowly turned gentle. Cough. Cough cough. A cough rang out, breaking the clamorous argument at this moment. Everyone's gaze turned over. Gu Jingyu sat on the stone bench, one hand placed on the stone table, while the other pressed against his chest. His pale complexion looked extremely weak. Coughing sounds could be heard. The more he coughed, the whiter his face became. That seemingly slender body looked as if it would collapse at any time. You all, listen to me. Gu Jingyu moved his lips as his voice was hoarse. The villagers immediately stopped their clamoring. Waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak, Gu Jingyu moved his body. He supported himself on the stone table as he tried to stand up. But his entire body was weak, unable to exert any strength. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she slowly walked up, supporting Gu Jingyu with one hand. Gu Jingyu's gentle eyes flashed past a glint of joy. He lowered his voice as he thanked her. Then with Yiqing Luo's support he stood up. A pair of gentle like water, but filled with an irresistible imposing manner, looked at those villagers as he spoke in a serious and sincere manner. Miss Yi and I appreciate your kind intentions. But your request, we can't do it. Little master, we've already decided. We've thought it through. You don't need to have any psychological pressure. The villagers immediately opened their mouths. Elder T nodded. Little master, this is the best choice for you and for us. Gu Jingyu slowly shook his head. If I die under the Gu poison, your conscience will not be at ease. But if the entire village, because of me, die under Miss Ye's hands, how can I be at ease? He looked at those villagers. Thank you for thinking for us, but we can't be that selfish. Young master, Elder T said anxiously, you still have a bright future ahead of you. We are just a bunch of old guys. Half of our bodies are under the ground. Even if we live, it is meaningless. Gu Jingyu's gaze was firm. Everyone lives in this world for a unique reason. No one lives without meaning. I can't let you die for my own life. Saying that, Gu Jingyu looked towards Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, you cannot kill these villagers. Young master. The villagers shouted out one after another. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh when he saw how they were trying to shirk the responsibility. How touching. Ah. Little girl, the final decision is in your hands. This elder is very curious. How will you choose? Ha. Everyone's vision was placed on Yiqing Luo. The villagers lowered their voices as they pleaded in a low voice, allowing Yiqing Luo to make a decision. Gu Jingyu shook his head at Yiqing Luo, determined not to let everyone die together because of his own poison. The scene was once again in an uproar. Chapter 24-23. When did I say that I want to kill these villagers? Yiqing Luo's clear voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she glanced at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression stiffened slightly, as though he felt uncomfortable because of Yiqing Luo's words. And he pressed on his heart as he coughed hard. That pair of gentle eyes flashed past a trace of inexplicable grief. His heart felt as though there was a needle poking at it non-stop. Gu Jingyu gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. Indeed, he had no place in her heart at all. When Yi Luo didn't deny it, the villagers misunderstood that they were husband and wife. He thought that he was infallible. She had a special place in Yi Luo's heart, a special existence. But in the end, he couldn't even be compared to these villagers. Looking at Gu Jingyu's inexplicable feeling, the surrounding atmosphere became desolate. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She didn't quite understand the change in Gu Jingyu's thoughts. She couldn't figure it out. She simply couldn't be bothered to think further. Instead she looked at those villagers. Don't say any more, I won't kill you for the so-called cure. Elder T frowned. Young lady, other than the Miao people, no one else in the world can cure the Miao people. We, this group of old fellows, appreciate your kind intentions. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she slowly walked towards Elder T. She raised her fair wrist and gently pressed the parcel that Elder T passed to her, pressing it back into Elder T's arms. This carries your feelings, carries your longing, you need to pass it to Grandma Bu personally. Elder T was stunned. But young lady, don't tell me, do you really want your own husband to die from the poison? Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu indifferently. He and I are just ordinary friends, he is not my husband. Elder T's mouth opened wider and wider. This time, Elder T didn't treat Yiqing Luo's explanation as Yiqing Luo being shy. But even if he is not your husband then? Some villagers opened their mouth apprehensively. Even if he was not this young lady's husband. But they let this young master be tortured to death by the Gu poison just like that. They were the same, they couldn't accept it. Hearing Yiqing Luo's denial, Gu Jingyu's heart fell to the bottom. His entire body felt cold as if he was in an ice house. The Gu poison in his body kept moving about in his internal organs. He is in pain. But it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Could it be, had he really fallen in love with this girl whom he had only met twice? Moreover, he had given his heart? Otherwise, why would he do that just because of a single sentence from this young girl? His heart ached to such an extent? There's no need for you to say anything more. If I wanted you to die, I wouldn't have saved you earlier. Since I've chosen to save you, I'll protect you till the end. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and calmly suppressed the villagers' uneasy words. Then, she looked at the man who had lost all support and was sitting powerlessly on the stone bench. As for young Master Gu, although he and I are just ordinary friends, he was poisoned to save me after all. Logically speaking, I can't just watch him die. Yiqing Luo's voice was calm and indifferent. It floated into Gu Jingyu's ears. It made Gu Jingyu's heart jump for no reason. Chapter 24-24. The third elder of Miao clan had heard their conversation. He looked at Yiqing Luo in disdain as he ridiculed, "Young lady, do you think that just because you can defeat me, you will be able to cure my Gu poison? Thinking of protecting both sides? Do you really think there's such a beautiful thing in this world?" "I don't know if there's such a beautiful thing, but I know." Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight into Third Elder Miao's eyes. "You. No matter in which aspect, you're defeated by me." Her voice paused as she sneered, "Defeated by me, you're just a clown." Third Elder Miao's face sunk as the anger in his chest continued to burn. Good. You still want to be stubborn with me? I'll let you experience the power of the Miao family's Gu worms. Third Elder Miao raised his palm. He took out a dagger and forcefully cut his palm. Fresh blood dripped down from his palm. He gave a sinister smile as he opened his palm. He started to recite the Miao tribe's incantation. As he recited, as he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression, he wanted to see Yiqing Luo panicking and begging for mercy. But Yiqing Luo's expression was as calm and indifferent as usual. Her gaze was extremely cold. There wasn't a trace of panic or fear. Instead, it was filled with a chilling cold glint and determination. Third Elder Miao's gaze and Yiqing Luo's eyes met for an instant. Yiqing Luo suddenly revealed an extremely light and enchanting smile. "Third Elder Miao, you can threaten me because of the Gu poison in Master Gu's body. If you want to use the Gu poison to hurt Master Gu, then I will disregard everything and make a move against you." Third Elder Miao's mouth, which was reciting the incantation, suddenly paused. "You dare? You can try if I dare." Yiqing Luo retorted with ridicule, "As long as you activate the Gu worm in his body, I have no worries. Anyway, as compared to Master Gu, you don't want to die." Third Elder Miao's face turned steely green as he stared at Yiqing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to tear her into pieces. However, he still cherished his life and stopped the incantation in his mouth. Gu Jingyu, who was sitting by the side, looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Yiqing Luo's earlier words kept repeating in her mind. She was clearly just a young girl. Yet he possessed such boldness. Although what she had said to him sounded so cold, Lin Mingya still felt that it was a pity. But, from her words, it was clear that she cared about him. However, if it was anyone else who said these words, they would have been shocked. It was very possible, that such an effect could not be achieved. He was also unable to suppress Third Elder Miao's aura. It was obviously Third Elder Miao who had something which could threaten Yiqing Luo. However, Third Elder Miao did not dare to act rashly. She was the only one who could be so domineering and overbearing. Furthermore, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out Third Elder Miao's fear of death. It was clearly a disadvantage. Yet he relied on his own aura. He had forcefully reversed the situation. Gu Jingyu's gaze towards Yiqing Luo became increasingly gentle, increasingly filled with some kind of feelings. Third Elder Meow. As for me, I have no intention to become enemies with the Meow tribe, but since I've bumped into this matter today, then I have no choice but to care about it. Moreover, doesn't Third Elder Meow like to implicate innocent people? Chapter 24-25. Third Elder Meow's face was ashen. If only he had known that this young girl was so powerful. No matter what, he would never drag this young girl into it. Looking at Yiqing Luo's smiling face, Third Elder Meow felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood in his heart. What exactly do you want? Third Elder Meow asked while gnashing his teeth. As soon as the words left his mouth, Third Elder Meow shut his mouth in annoyance. He couldn't help but slap his own mouth. Right now he was clearly in control. It was him who could make use of the venomous worm to threaten Yiqing Luo into not daring to make a move on him. It should be Yiqing Luo who was afraid. But after he asked this question, he forcefully lowered his aura by a notch. It had evolved into him begging Yiqing Luo to give him a quick death. Handing the initiative over to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she curled her lips sweetly and spoke in a calm voice. After all, you're also a member of the Meow tribe. As for me, naturally I can't kill you. Hearing this, Third Elder Meow's expression froze and his eyes brightened. That's right. I am an elder of the Meow tribe. I represent the entire Meow tribe. If you dare to touch me, you must shut up. Yiqing Luo indifferently glanced at Third Elder Meow. His voice was cold and emotionless. Third Elder Meow's throat tightened and he couldn't make a sound. Yiqing Luo slowly took a few steps forward. Third Elder Meow's body went limp and he staggered backward, as though he was frightened by Yiqing Luo. His entire face was deathly pale. You cured young Master Gu's goo poison and made the fiercest oath of the Meow tribe. You promised never to cause trouble for the Bu family village again? Yiqing Luo stated her request word by word. Her eyes were calm and her expression was indifferent. It was as if he was talking about something extremely ordinary. Why should I believe you? Third Elder Meow straightened his neck and glared at him. The only thing he could rely on now was the poison in Gu Jingyu's body. If he cured the Gu. Yiqing Luo had no more misgivings as she struck out at him. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. Because you have no choice. What do you mean? Third Elder Meow's face turned even paler and he took a few more steps back. As though Yiqing Luo was a dreadful beast. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she suddenly opened her palm towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow thought that Yiqing Luo was going to attack him. He immediately let out a loud cry. He dodged towards the Meow tribesmen who were standing still at the side. But Yiqing Luo instructed him to simply open his palm. It was very simple and very casual as he waved it at Third Elder Meow. It was a simple gesture. Instead, it seemed like he was mocking Third Elder Meow for making a fuss over nothing. Third Elder Meow felt that he had been played. She was angry and embarrassed. Just as he was about to help a Meow man to stand up, suddenly his palm came into contact with something sharp. A bloody gash immediately appeared on his palm. Fresh blood flowed down his palm. Third Elder Meow retracted his hand in pain as he looked at the wound on his palm. It wasn't considered deep, but it was definitely not a shallow wound. He immediately looked towards the place where his palm had touched earlier in puzzlement. From this angle, through the bright light in the surroundings, Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. Beside that Meow man there was an extremely thin ray of light. Chapter 24-26. What was that? Third Elder Meow's face turned pale as he trembled as he stretched out his hand, probing it. He then discovered that was a strand of extremely fine silver thread. Each strand of silver thread was as sharp as a blade. Under the illumination of the light, it reflected sparks, which made one dumbstruck. Third Elder Meow looked at that strand of silver thread in disbelief. Suddenly he seemed to have thought of something. He abruptly turned his head back, looking behind him at those Meow tribesmen who were unable to move. As expected, he could clearly see that every single Meow tribesman's body was wrapped with strand of silver thread. If one didn't look carefully, there was no way to tell. This was the reason why the Meow tribesmen were unable to move for so long. It wasn't that they didn't listen to him, but their limbs were bound, their bodies were bound. They had no way to move at all. When on earth, Third Elder Meow only felt his heart pounding in fear. His eyes were filled with shock as he slowly turned his head, looking at Yiqing Luo. His entire body was stiff, totally unable to twist. This young lady went on Earth under the circumstances that he didn't know, using these silver threads to bind the Miao tribesmen, making them unable to resist? From the start till the end he actually didn't have any sense. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a light smile. Her 5 fingers casually waved towards his open palm. Third Elder Miao saw it clearly. That bursts of silver cold glint scurried in front of his eyes. Those silver threads were all controlled by Yiqing Luo, using her hands to control those strands of silver threads. This time he was completely sure. It was this young lady? Under the circumstances where he didn't sense it at all, restraining his 50 over Miao tribesmen. Third Elder Miao only felt cold sweat dripping down, as his entire body turned soft, almost unable to stand. Third Elder Miao, you're an intelligent person, so you should be clear that the current you has no conditions and qualifications to negotiate with me. Yiqing Luo shook her fingers. Those 50 over people who were restrained by the silver threads, uncontrollably moved their hands. One after another they stretched out their hands towards Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao angrily stamped his feet as he berated, "You dare to touch me? All of you stop. All of you stop for this elder." However, the Miao people had no way to control their own consciousness. No matter how much Third Elder Miao roared in anger, these people's hands uncontrollably reached for Third Elder Miao's neck. "I will cure him of the goo. I'll cure him." Third Elder Miao was scared out of his wits. He held his head in a sorry state and sat down on the ground, shouting loudly. Those pairs of hands were about to reach his neck. He stopped. Soon after, the pairs of hands slowly moved away. A path was revealed. Third Elder Miao is indeed an intelligent person. Yiqing Luo alluringly curled her lips as she gave a calm and indifferent smile. Her charming eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. Then let's get started. As soon as she finished speaking, all of a sudden, a black pill popped out from his fingertip. The medicine's words fell into Third Elder Miao's lips. It melted into Third Elder Miao's mouth. Third Elder Miao coughed loudly a few times and immediately raised his hand to dig his throat. But after retching a few times he couldn't spit anything out. "What did you feed me?" Third Elder Miao clutched his neck as he stared sinisterly at Yiqing Luo. Chapter 24-27. Damn it. Now the person who lost more than he gained was him, his Miao tribe. He didn't know where Yiqing Luo got her face to say such words. Third Elder Miao clenched his teeth in anger. The expression on his face contorted into a sinister expression. It looked extremely terrifying. "TSK. Third Elder Miao, could it be that? You don't believe that I've poisoned you?" Yiqing Luo's little face was filled with doubt as she blinked her eyes. Third Elder Miao clenched his fists and did not reply. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue as she continued on her own. "But, Third Elder Miao, it's better for you to choose to believe me. After all, in front of you, there's already Little Marquis and your Miao tribe's eldest young miss." As a warning, when Yiqing Luo mentioned Little Duke and eldest young Miss Miao, Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned pale as he raised his head in disbelief, staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. You are..." The news of Yiqing Luo being hunted down by the entire continent by the Battle King's manor had already caused an uproar in the Northern Waves continent. The Miao people were naturally aware of this matter. Miao Rongrong, the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe, was the one who cured Yuan Kuang's poison. The Miao tribe's people naturally knew the reason why the Battle King manor was searching for Yiqing Luo in the entire continent. Not long ago, Lady Miao returned to the Miao Stockade village in a sorry state. Who knew what they discussed with the Miao tribe's leader? Young Miss Miao announced that she was going into seclusion and refused anyone's visit. The day of the Saintess election was just around the corner. Young Miss Miao was determined to obtain the position of Holy Maiden. How could Miss Miao choose to go into seclusion at this critical juncture? Third Elder Miao had more or less heard about it. It was said that young Mistress Miao had been poisoned. He was poisoned at the War King's mansion. He thought of how the young prince had been poisoned. Third Elder Miao's body suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably from his entire body. Yiqing Luo looked at Third Elder Miao's expression and knew that he understood her words. Then she rubbed her chin and clicked her tongue. "Third Elder Miao, I've never been a patient person." "Me? Release." Third Elder Miao's face was deathly pale, and he spat out each word in a flustered and exasperated manner. No matter what, he would never believe it. This young girl, is she really only 13 or 14 years old in front of me? Such an oppressive pressure. Such a fierce method. This was a threat that he couldn't resist and couldn't resist at all. Little by little. Third Elder Miao couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. But that was the truth. The truth was, indeed he had no choice. He wanted to live. Compared to young Master Gu, he wanted to live more. He could only choose to take a gamble and believe in Yiqing Luo. He could only believe in Yiqing Luo. He watched as Third Elder Miao walked towards Gu Jingyu with a dark expression. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. It was this kind of mental fortitude. He could even become an elder of the Miao tribe. Was she overestimating the Miao tribe? Third Elder Miao was very clear in his heart. The Gu poison in Gu Jingyu's body would bind him and Gu Jingyu together. Once he was hurt in any way, Gu Jingyu would suffer the same amount of damage. How could she really let the Miao tribesman strangle his neck? However, Third Elder Miao cherished his life. When he met with matters related to his life, he had completely lost all his rationality. This was a battle in his heart. Whose inner heart wasn't strong? Who would be toyed with in the palm of his hand? Chapter 24-28. She had grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness. And also grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness. Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that Third Elder Miao would play any tricks. After all, those 2 lessons learned from the mistakes of the past had already cast a psychological shadow on Third Elder Miao. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was the young matriarch of the Gu Feng sect. Naturally, he wasn't a stupid person. If Third Elder Miao really had a disloyal heart, Gu Jingyu should have sensed it. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the 2 of them as she walked directly towards the Bu family village's villagers. Old grandpa's old ladies, later let Third Elder Miao promise you according to the Miao tribe's venomous oath, that he will not harass you anymore. In future you don't need to worry about being harassed by the Miao tribe anymore. The villagers were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react in time. It was just a matter of a moment. The Miao people who had always been aggressive, overbearing and unreasonable, were actually obediently submitting before this young lady. Furthermore, she even swore a venomous oath to return them a peaceful life. Plop. A sound of someone kneeling on the ground was heard. Old T's face was filled with tears as he knelt on the ground. Young lady, you're the entire village's benefactor. Thank you. Thank you. Originally they thought that today was because of their Bu family village, implicating this innocent young lady. They had not expected that. This young lady had saved the entire village. Yiqing Luo hurriedly knelt down on one knee and helped Old T up. Old grandpa, didn't I ask for a pot of tea from you? Those villagers also started to kneel down. They all thanked Yiqing Luo for her help. How could Yiqing Luo accept so many elderly's kowtows? She immediately activated her profound energy and dragged their kneeling bodies. Old grandpa's old ladies, if you really want to thank me in future when I come to the Bu family village, please brew me the best tea. Yiqing Luo helped Old T up. Old grandpa, I have some matters regarding Grandma Bu which I want to ask you. Old T raised his sleeve and wiped the tears off his face. Young lady, ask. As long as I know something, I will tell you everything without reservation. The Miao tribe kept robbing you just to find one person. Who is that person? Why are the Miao tribe looking for that person? Unless it was someone very important to the Miao tribe, or someone very important to the Miao tribe. Why would the Miao tribe use such a method to find that person? Moreover, the Miao people seemed to be very certain. The person they were looking for was in the Bu family village? Elder T was stunned as his gaze went past Yiqing Luo and looked towards Third Elder Miao who was helping Gu Jingyu to cure the Gu. His dry lips slightly pursed. To be honest, we really don't know who the Miao people are looking for. If we knew, we would not have endured the Miao people's plundering and brutal killings time and time again. The other villagers nodded in agreement. I've always felt that the Miao people are deliberately using this as an excuse to plunder our resources. We also want to know who exactly are the Miao people looking for, why that person is not standing out. After the villager finished speaking, he hurriedly explained, I'm not asking that person to step forward and throw away his life. It's just that the villagers of the Bu family village have suffered too much because of that person. More than 10 villagers have died. We should at least have the right to know. Yiqing Luo nodded, expressing her understanding. Listening to the dozens of villagers talking at once, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 24-29. Almost certain. The Bu family village's people were indeed not sure who the Miao tribesmen were looking for. But the Miao tribesmen were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. Looked like they could only wait for Third Elder Miao to cure Gu Jingyu's goo before they could get some information from him. About the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Third Elder Miao wiped his forehead full of sweat as he panted heavily as he sat heavily on the ground. His black short shirt was already soaked in sweat. Yiqing Luo walked over quickly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's face wasn't as pale as before. His breathing had also calmed down. His furrowed brows from the pain and the uncontrollable coughing had also been smoothed out. Seeing Yiqing Luo looking at him, Gu Jingyu gave a gentle smile as he slowly shook his head. I feel much better now. It should be because the Gu has been cured. Yiqing Luo was assured as she glanced sideways at Third Elder Miao. Met with her gaze. Third Elder Miao instinctively crawled back a few steps. He had deeply experienced Yiqing Luo's boldness and methods. As long as he could live on, he didn't need any integrity. His Gu. Gu, I've already cured it, quickly give me the antidote. Third Elder Miao's voice was still trembling. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her index finger and shook it at him. No hurry. Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. What else do you want to do? Also use your Miao tribe's most vicious method. Promise that you will never harass the Bu family village again. Yiqing Luo said calmly. His casual tone almost caused Third Elder Miao's throat to taste a fishy sweetness, and he almost spat out blood. He suppressed his anger as he gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All right. I promise. He was about to raise his finger as he made a perfunctory vow, but was stopped by Yiqing Luo's hand. Third Elder Miao frowned impatiently. What on earth are you? Before he could finish his words, Third Elder Miao saw Yiqing Luo barehandedly grabbing a tribesman from among those Miao tribesmen. The Miao tribe's most venomous oath, or perhaps curse. If Third Elder Miao isn't using the Miao tribe's venomous oath, then I'll let you personally experience what a venomous oath is. Yiqing Luo's threatening voice rang beside his ear. That Miao tribesman almost cried from fright. His body trembled as he met Third Elder Miao's warning glare. The Miao tribesman froze. In the next instant, a soft hand gently rested on his shoulder. Beside his ear, the girl's clear and cold voice said, You have to think about it carefully. I'm not someone you can casually threaten. The Miao tribesman did not know if he had fallen for the honey trap. He was still awed by Yiqing Luo's boldness. He nodded repeatedly. I don't dare to hide anything. I will tell you the truth. Third Elder Miao stomped his feet in anger. His vicious gaze landed on the tribesman. But Yiqing Luo directly rebutted. Why? Looking at Third Elder Miao's expression, it seemed that he didn't want to swear according to my request. Since that's the case, then I'll... No, how could that be? I'll swear right now, according to the Miao tribe's most venomous method. Third Elder Miao immediately opened his mouth as he speedily bit his finger and took out a strange-shaped goo worm. Following that, according to the Miao tribe's method, he gave his promise in front of everyone. Chapter 24-30. Third Elder Miao's hand which was holding on to that goo worm paused as he raised his head abruptly. You can't do this. Not only could he not find trouble with the Bu family village, he still had to protect the Bu family village from other troubles? This meant that his plan to use other channels to slaughter the Bu family village had been blocked. This slut. Why did she seem to be able to guess what he was thinking about? Yiqing Luo only smiled at him. She didn't say anything. Her smile was sweet, but it made that not breathtaking and could only be described as elegant, revealing a bit of enchanting look. But in Third Elder Miao's heart, a surge of terror and fear arose. He trembled slightly as he looked at that extremely faint smile. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth and spat out a few words. Fine. Count it on me. Yiqing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Now, can you give me the antidote? There was a poison in his body which he couldn't detect. Third Elder Miao was extremely terrified and frightened. Afraid that he would become like Yuan Kuang. And afraid that he would end up like Miao Rongrong, choosing to go into closed-door cultivation to detoxify. Yiqing Luo raised her finger and shook it. Third Elder Miao shut his eyes tightly, already used to Yiqing Luo going back on her words. Tell me your request clearly. I just want to find out something from you. Yi Qing Luo walked to the stone table and sat down. Let's sit down and talk slowly. Third Elder Miao's legs were wobbly. How would he dare to move? Yi Qing Luo didn't force him to sit down. Instead, he poured a cup of tea for Gu Jingyu and a cup for himself. Her actions were leisurely. Every action affected the hearts of the Miao people, following Yi Qing Luo's actions. Third Elder Miao felt that he had aged by more than 10 years today. After Yi Qing Luo finished pouring the tea, she opened her mouth slowly. Who is the person you're looking for in the Bu family village? Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. This is the Miao family's internal affairs. But it involves the Bu family village, then it's not an internal affair. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Third Elder Miao averted his gaze. Other than this matter, I can tell you everything else that I know. What I want to know is this matter. Yi Qing Luo didn't give in at all and was overbearing. She knew that the person the Miao tribe was looking for must be the internal affairs of the Miao tribe, and also the Miao tribe's secret. Otherwise, with the status of the Miao tribe in the Northern Waves continent, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could totally search for the person the Miao people were looking for, just like how Battle King General searched for her. Third Elder Miao's expression turned ugly. He knew clearly how difficult it was to deal with Yi Qing Luo. But he had not expected Yi Qing Luo to be so difficult to deal with. The person that the Miao tribe was looking for was related to the future development of the Miao tribe. If this girl found out, it would definitely destroy the peace of the Miao tribe. This kind of demon must not be allowed to set her target on the Miao tribe. Third Elder Miao would rather die than submit, huh? Yi Qing Luo laughed in ridicule. It's rare that Third Elder Miao has such backbone. Then I shall fulfill Third Elder Miao's wish, to sacrifice myself to protect the Miao tribe's secret. Saying that, she put down the teacup in her hands, stood up and said to Gu Jingyu, Master Gu, let's go. Gu Jingyu had regained his energy by now, even his complexion was back to normal. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, he cooperated and stood up, following behind her. The two of them had barely walked a few steps. Chapter 24:31. Young lady? The Miao people were looking for a 14-year-old young lady? Why must she be 14 years old? A 14-year-old young lady can be found anywhere. Why must they run over to the Bu family village, which is filled with old grandpas and aunties? Yi Qing Luo voiced out her doubts. Third Elder Miao's gaze was wavering. On his face, it was obvious that he was struggling. As though he was hesitating if he should say these things out. But he recalled what Yi Qing Luo said, that his patience was not good. He was worried that Yi Qing Luo would get impatient. In the end, he was defeated by the fear of death. It's not that a 14-year-old young lady can do it, but... Third Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly as his gaze turned towards those Miao people who were tied up. In his eyes, a sliver of murderous intent was fleeting. Following that, Third Elder Miao raised his head, as though he had made his final decision. He looked at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. That 14-year-old young lady is the Miao tribe's traitor. According to the clues provided by the Miao tribe, after that traitor escaped from the Miao tribe, she hid in the Bu family village. After that, there was no more news of that traitor. So, that traitor's clues must be related to the Bu family village. When Third Elder Miao said this, he paused slightly. Since she's a traitor, why did you only come to the Bu family village to investigate? If she's really a traitor, wouldn't the Miao tribe have already asked the royal family or the Qinghua sect to step out? Yi Qing Luo's smile rose slightly as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a smile which didn't look like a smile. I don't like to beat around the bush. Third Elder Miao better say it in the most straightforward way. Seeing her smile, Third Elder Miao's face turned black as he immediately said, that young lady is indeed a traitor. She stole our Miao tribe's most sacred ancient gu worm. Ancient gu worm? Yi Qing Luo remembered that it was written in the information that Peach had given her. Ancient gu worm, that was the symbol of the Miao tribe. It was actually stolen? That traitor used the ancient gu worm and hid in the Bu family village. After that, we lost all contact. Even the Miao tribe's witchcraft has no way to trace that traitor's whereabouts. Third Elder Miao said, the matter of the ancient gu worm being stolen must not be spread at such a crucial juncture like the Saintess election. Otherwise, the Miao clansmen will definitely panic. Therefore, the higher-ups gave me a private order to go to the Bu family village to find that traitor and retrieve the ancient gu worm. But the villagers said that they don't know who the person you're looking for is. In this village, if a 14-year-old young lady really came, how could they not remember? Yi Qing Luo raised her doubts. This I don't know either. The order I received was to force that traitor to show himself in the Bu family village. The third elder shook his head hurriedly. It's not that I'm hiding anything, but, although we are elders, we don't have any real power in the Miao tribe. Most of the internal affairs of the Miao tribe, especially those related to the future of the Miao tribe wouldn't let me know too much. These words were not false. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Do you know who that traitor is? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.